presence also. And worship instructions of the Spirit. God has given, has left behind a legacy of Vedic expositions. So many instructions have been passed down in form of his writings, in his commentaries, and so we have to carry out the instructions of the spiritual master. In fact, that is the most important thing. Anyone can play games serving the personal form of the Lord, of the spiritual master. But the important thing is when he's not there, are you serving his instructions? That is the real, that is the real deal. That is the real deal. Because at some point in time, even the founder child had left his physical presence, left his physical body, he passed on. The guru may have to pass on. But the intelligent disciple does not stop serving the guru in the absence of the Babu. So Vyasa Puja, we have to do the Vyasa Puja actually every day. I bet this is like a ceremony, the official day we come together to do this glorification and reminiscing is the spiritual master's activities, his pastimes. But it shouldn't end here. It is, the worship is a continuum. In as much as we are still inhabiting these bodily tabernacles, the worship is a continuum. And therefore, what is important for us today is to be able to reflect the instructions that, the general instructions and the specific instructions we have received from the spiritual master. In fact, the perfection of the devotee is in executing the instructions, especially specific instructions. You know, when Guru Maharaj was leaving his body in Gitanagari, I just avoided going to see him by all means. Avoided. Why? Because I know if I go to see him, he will tell me, do this, Vasudev, do this, do this, do this, do this. And I'm not always lucky. It gives me difficult tasks. When there's some crisis, and he says, oh, Vasudev, go deal with it. So I avoided him. But then the very last moment, the servants, they came to say, all senior disciples must come and do personal service, must come and do last vapu. So I chose to go and wash his toilet room. And then immediately you have to toilet is in the, you have to enter into his room before you go into the toilet. So immediately I entered the room, he said, oh, here, this were his exact words. Oh, here comes him, here comes him. In other words, he knew that I was avoiding him. Yes, so then, I got the bombardments here and there. You do this, do this, do this, do this. First, he warned me very seriously. Hey, you must stop this. You have to stop this. You have to stop it. What? You've been keeping quiet for so many years. You've been keeping quiet for so many years. I'm leaving. Stop it. Whatever you see, say it. If they don't follow it, you are free from the reactions. This is what he told me when he was on his deathbed. This is what he told me when he was giving up his body. Another devotee goes to meet him. Maharaj, you are leaving. Give me some instruction. Oh, go chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Yeah. So, the instructions of the Guru, they are our life and soul. In fact, the secret of success in devotional life is to carry out, to worship the spiritual master in form of his Bani. So, we have so many things to do today. All of you know what is the meaning of Vyasa Puja. And the important thing for us is that this is the pivot of spiritual excellence. This is the fulcrum of spiritual perfection. This is the very means of getting out from this material existence, worshiping, carrying out the instructions of the spiritual master in his physical absence. That is the most important aspect of worship of the Guru. So today we'll be hearing so many glorifications, but the highlight of everything else is we have to ask ourselves. Sometimes we receive instructions that are not so good for us. And then we try to play it back. So, today we should be reflecting about the instructions, the general instructions we have received from the Guru, and the specific instructions we have personally been instructed to execute. That is the perfection of Vyasa Puja. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai. So we want as many people as possible to speak. So as such, we're given 5 minutes maximum for each speaker. And Advaita Acharya Prabhu will time the... actually, we are Advaita Acharya Prabhu and myself, we are coordinating this program. We are the so-called MCs, Master of Ceremonies. So sometimes you see him, sometimes you see me. We are doing the same job. So he will keep the time, and he will alert us that the speaker's time is up. So we shall now invite His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Swami to make his offering to Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhudevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I'm very honored to be present here because of so many great Vaishnavas. Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj definitely stands out as very special. And I was fortunate enough to have his direct association and even some service by translating for him when he was visiting Russia. And he's always been a very special personality, and of course, there are so many things I would like to say, which I wouldn't have time for. But one feature of the greatness of a Vaishnava is shown through the quality of his disciples, and practically every single disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is outstanding personality. And so that shows how great Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is and how amazing Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is. I'm fortunate to have association. Just, we can look at Diksha Gurus, sannyasis, best of the best. They're all disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I'm fortunate to know Bhakti Tirtha Damodara Maharaj by Sabha association, and he's always very impressing us with his depth and with his humility, and I'm sure all other disciples are all the same quality, and exactly same as Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, always ready to sacrifice themselves for the sake of Prabhupada's mission. And one of them who used to be a leader in eastern Ukraine, his name was Madan Gopal Prabhu, and he sacrificed his life by serving so many needy people because he was organizer and conductor of Food for Life program, and unfortunately a rocket flew into the place where they were serving prasadam, and him and the other leader in the no that actually um, Krishna, what was his name? Krishna Krishna Dharma, Krishna Tattva Prabhu, yes, that he was disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and his associate Madan Gopal Prabhu. Both of them died, and even though this is very tragical event, of course, losing devotees in such unfortunate war circumstances, but amazingly enough, Krishna Tattva Prabhu and Madan Gopal Prabhu continue living, even though they left their physical bodies, because they've been so much glorified for sacrificing their lives for the sake of taking care of people, needy people, that it's been decided that their names will be um, there will be some memorial in their name in the city, and it's pretty important city, Alchevsk. So I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada, after he left his body, his glories shine forth more and more. In the same way, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, after he left his body, his glories shine more and more, his legacy continues developing, and in the same way, his disciples, even if they leave this mortal world, their mission becomes more prominent and their glories shine forth. And it's wonderful to see. And of course, one of the greatest legacies, I mean, there are so many legacies His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left behind. One of them was IFAST, Institute for Applied Spiritual Technologies. And as many of you know, probably some of you are his Shiksha disciples too, because, his inspiration was going way above and beyond the circle of his initiated disciples. And so at some point, just an example, at some point, one disciple of Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu, is also second generation Guru, disciple of Jayapataka Maharaj, and her name is Malika Mala Devi. And she was getting so much inspiration from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and from his Institute for Applied Spiritual Technologies that she wanted to take it up and develop it further. And interestingly enough, just in few short years, she managed to spread, establish the branches of the IFAST in 25 countries. And so many thousands of people, they take up to Krishna consciousness, and very qualified people too, very educated, cultured people, they become devotees through the IFAST. Actually, it's one of the most dynamic preaching programs we have in our society. So there's some hints of the glories of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and I could say many more things, but I wanted to thank all of you for your wonderful example and inspiration, and look forward for the glories of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and his mission to develop even more through all of you, his wonderful followers. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai. Vyasa Puja Mahamahotsav ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Yeah, His Grace Bhakti Rasayana Saga Swami Maharaj ki jai. Sorry, His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Saga Swami Maharaj ki jai.
His Holiness Saga Swami, I know him since 2003. We are Bhakti Sassi students together in Banana. And among all of us, we were 22 students. He was having 100% in each of the subjects. Bhagavad Gita 100%, Letter Division 100%, Lesson Instruction 100%, Six Upanishad 100%. He was our topmost student. And among all of the students, after we finished, he conducted a seminar for us. I was surprised to see our student is doing seminar. And very interesting. So I didn't even see that thing. And he didn't mention his name, but he's part of the Ice Fast program, which he has been conducting a lot of programs and seminars under the Ice Fast. And he's working with the leader. So he's part of that institute he's talking. He's promoting it, and they're making devotees, which we are very happy with. And presently, I'm fortunate to have his association with Saba. Saba is a committee set by SGGS under the GBC leadership. So our service is to look at all the resolutions which are passed by the GBCs, evaluate it and look at the merit and the demerit and see how it will benefit the whole society before we pass a recommended. It's a very heavy duty the Saba members have been doing. And I'm happy to have association of the Saga Swami Maharaj who was with us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for promoting IFAS. I think you are showing an example how the legacy of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj can be spread all over the world.
About a year ago, IFAS became part of the UN. Over a year ago, IFAS became part of the UN structure, which is called URI, United Religious Initiatives. All of you know how much Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was interested in interfaith cooperation. So now IFAS is a very dynamic and very impressive part of the largest interfaith network on the planet. So that's also quite an achievement, accredited by the United Nations.
That's amazing. Actually, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said that after his departure, he will be more available. That is being fulfilled. Maharaj said after his departure from this world, he will become more available to the world. We couldn't understand that. Now it is manifesting. Thank you, Maharaj, for being part of that. I think the disciples, we should remember this. If, let's say, non-disciples are carrying on Maharaj's legacy, why should we, the disciples, not also carry it out? So in our various countries, we should be thinking of establishing this IFAS and using it for preaching. That is what is being done in Russia, in many other places. And now it has become part of the UN. That's amazing. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So now we shall invite, as we said, we will invite one guest and one disciple. So now we invite one disciple to also speak, and that is in the person of His Grace Mahajan Prabhu. Mahajan Prabhu is one of our leaders from Argentina. He served Guru Maharaj for many years. He has personal relationship with Guru Maharaj, and so we shall hear from him some realizations and some pastimes.
Hare Krishna. Okay, as you just heard, my name is Mahajan Das. I'm an insignificant, unworthy, very proud, and also very uncultured and unrefined disciple of His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami. But he said, one day, 1 week before he left his body, he said, Mahajan, you know why you are here with me now? I said, no, Gurudev, why? He said, to tell the whole world what you have seen between these four walls. So this is my only qualification, no devotion whatsoever, but I'm here. So I'm trying to deliver this to all of you. I have 5 minutes and I have 2 million things to say. I spent the last... Don't take for me. No, anyway, I was one of the eight caretakers that stayed with him for the last 3 months. It was a very... Anyway, I will tell you first how I met him. I met him in a theater in Washington. And immediately I saw him, I asked him for his glasses. He was chanting and dancing. And I just asked him, I don't know, I just saw him and I said, give me your glasses. So he was chanting and dancing and he took his glasses and gave it to me. So I just grabbed a piece of tissue that I have and I cleaned them and I gave it back to him. And he kept chanting. And then 15 minutes later, I said, give me your glasses again. So I gave the glasses. I cleaned it back, give it to me. Anyway, I gave it to him. So we came, anyways, making a long story short, so many things to say. He initiated me in a forest. We went deep into the forest, him and me. And we went deep and deep and deep, walking in the forest in Washington, I remember. And I said, Gurudev, I read all his books, all your books. At that time, it was only 3 of them. I read all your books. And he looked at me and said, did you read all Prabhupada's books? No, Gurudev. Well, you don't ever read one of my books again unless you finish all Prabhupada's books. So at that time, I was in the 10th canto. So I hurry up, finishing but I hurry up, finishing the cantos so I can read his books again. Anyway, so I got initiated in the forest. He said, you know how many disciples would like to be alone with the guru in the middle of the forest? I said, well, I'm pretty sure many of them. I said, okay, just take this advantage very seriously. So he started to explain me about the Mahajans, the 12 Mahajans, and say, and you're going to be one of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of those Mahajans. So I paid my obeisances in the mud. So I rise, everybody in the mud, he looked at me like, you're a disaster, Looking at me, I said, yes, Guru. I just, shake off the mud and everything, so we went back. So he told me, so you won't serve me directly, you will serve one of my god brothers, and that will be your service to me, So for, many, many years, I never served him directly. Until what time? Until he was very sick. By the time he was very sick, so I was living in Miami. So I called Brajalila Mataji, and I said, Brajalila, wherever, I don't know what it is, I don't know who I am, and I really don't care, if I'm worthy or not, but I want to be his personal servant for the last days of his mortal life here on earth. I said, okay, so he's going for an operation, so we go to Hawaii. So buy a ticket and go to Hawaii. So immediately I just went on internet trying to buy a ticket, and for 2.5 hours I couldn't buy a ticket going to Hawaii. So Brajalila called me back and said, no, actually we are not going to make the operation. We go in Hawaii, we are going to make it in Mexico. So buy a ticket to Mexico. So and then again into the online, internet, trying to buy a ticket for Mexico. Finally, I got my ticket to Mexico. So Brajalila, I have my ticket to Mexico. Yeah, we decided that they're gonna cut his leg off, and he will go straight to Washington. And I said, well, I just have my ticket to Mexico. So I said, okay, in Washington they have many disciples, so you don't need to be there. I said, don't say that to me. I said, come on. I said, okay. He said, yes, this is the way it is. So I went to live in Radhakunda. And I spent 2 months in Radhakunda doing a lot of austerities, like many Govardhan parikrams and Dandavat parikrams in Radhakunda, and working. I read the whole Bhagavatam in 2 months. I was cleaning the Radhakunda. I was doing so much austerity there. And my only desire was to see his last breath. That was the only thing I was asking to Srimati Radharani. Just I want to see his last breath. I don't know who am I, but I don't know how you're going to do it. But please allow me to see his last breath. So then I called back after 2 months and I said, okay, Rajalila, I'm going to Pennsylvania. I'm going to Gitanagari. So I went to Gitanagari. He was saying his disciples there. And he was seeing like 10 disciples at the time, because many disciples coming from all over. So he was giving instructions to some disciples, and then he gave instructions to me, Mahajan, you, this and this and this. And then when I go out of the room, I said, no way, I don't go back to my country. And I said, he said I should go, but I don't go back to my country. I'm going to be here until the last breath. So I talked to Rajalila, and Kabir said, I don't care, I stay here. Well, you don't have a service. I don't care, I stay here. Well, we don't have service for you, you have to go. I don't care, it was starting to snow. I say, I sit here until you give me a service. So I sat there, the snow was coming in, falling in, and I was, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So at night, Brajalila came and said, okay, come in, you have a service. I said, okay, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to iron his clothes. Okay, fine. So you go to the basement and iron the clothes. I said, and he was using 2 shirts and 2 lungis. That was the whole thing that he was using, because he was, on bed. It's okay, I ironed 2 beds and 2, probably that service with the washing machine, you can say that service will take about 25 minutes at the most. And I stayed for 8 hours a day, actually 10 hours a day, after doing my 25 minutes work service, reading his personal library. He has an ISKCON library, and he has a personal library with all his mystic things, he was doing. So I have many mystic things to say about him, but anyway, no time. So the thing is, so I was nobody, and we're 7 caretakers there. And one day he said, who is here? Who is taking care of me here? Well, is this the body, that the body over there, and this one? Okay, someone else. Because no one else. No, it is someone else. No, brother, we don't have anyone else. It's only 7 of them. Are you sure? Just think again. Oh yeah, Mahajan, yes, he's in the basement. So I was nobody. I was just ironing, the clothes, and reading his books. So I said, tell Mahajan to come here. So I went there, and he said, Mahajan, I'm just getting everything to a close now, to a closure. And he said, yeah. I said, yeah, Gurudev, said, okay, please tell everyone what you have seen here. And I said, yes, Gurudev. And please now you give me some massages. So from just ironing the clothes, I got to a massagist, a massage man, massage wala, or whatever. Sorry, my English is not very good. Anyway, so many things happened, many mystical things. One thing that was interesting, because that was in winter time, okay? I just went to winter time, was autumn, was actually springtime that he was leaving his body. So I have to walk from the temple to the institute where he was bedridden, through the forest. And I can see how the winter, dead, winter time in Gitanagari is very cold and gray and dead. I could see how the winter turns into spring. But I can see my Guru Maharaj going from spring, going into a so-called winter, which we can call it dead. But it was not dead, because I can see that all this merging of the winter and the spring in his life and in the climate, I can see these flowers, colorful flowers coming in the forest. So every time I was crossing the forest, I can see all these flowers coming in. And then when I go and meet him, I can see he was brighter and brighter and brighter. So spring was coming to his life. Getting out of this Kali Yuga scene. Anyway, I have 999,000 things more to say. I will say only one more. And then if you want, we can meet other day, and I can keep fulfilling my service of just giving this. One thing more, just very small. My Guru Maharaj said, I'm sure you know this video that he has, when he has his pearl crown, he was shouting to everyone, and he was preaching very heavily. Have you ever seen that video? That was in Washington, D.C. He told me personally, look, I was supposed to give a 15 minutes lecture, and when I was about to get to the lecture, they give me only 5 minutes. So I feel the same now. So anyway, I won't be that heavy today with you. But anyway, he was like that, So one thing, the last thing, I saw him becoming very bright 2 times. One is the one that everybody knows when we were with Radhanath Swami. It's a very famous picture that was Guru Maharaj with his cow protection, adopted cow shirt. Was Radhanath Swami there, listening to him, and I was I'm sorry, but I was in the middle there, my face was there. So he was saying, this cannot become better, but at the same time it's become better and better and better. I can see who can become very brighter and brighter and brighter. And he looked at Radhanath Swami and said, Prabhupada, you and me know very well why Prabhupada brought us here. So he said that. And the last thing I want to say is, I have to say this one too, I'm sorry. He was in the wheelchair, and I remember, I think you were with us, Advaita Prabhu. Actually, I think you called me and said, Guru Maharaj is leaving now. Guru Maharaj is leaving now. So I chant from the harmonium. I was doing 24, I was doing my shift of chanting. I chant from the harmonium, I went there. We were like 5. And they said, call Radhanath Swami to come in. So we called Radhanath Swami, he was there, and he was there in front of his deities. And he was saying, I'm leaving. He said, they are calling me. And Radhanath Swami was cheering him up. Just leave. Rise up and leave. Don't stay here in this war anymore. Just go. Run. And I saw him. He couldn't move because he has broken collarbone. He has one leg missing. He couldn't move at all. But he rise, and he became brighter. And he was rising like this, and everybody was looking at him like we were 5. I said, what's going on? He's missing a leg. What's he gonna do? I mean, with his spiritual body, he was there, and he was becoming brighter and brighter. It was very dark, remember? It was very dark, and everything becoming brighter and brighter. And he just sat back and said, crying, he said, no, they told me that I have to stay for a little longer. So I remember Radha Swami said, oh, come on. Okay, thank you. So last thing is, at that time I was taking care of letting people in and letting people into his room and stopping people. I was like a guard, stopping people to come into his room. And he was leaving his body. So I said, please, Radharani, please don't allow me to see his last breath. You promised me, please allow me to see his last breath. But I was outside of the room. I was outside. How am I going to see the last breath if I'm outside of the room? And everybody was there, chanting and having so much, mercy. And I was just standing in the door, I said, how am I going to see? He's leaving now. And then I said, please. And then some devotees and Radhanath Maharaj's disciples said, you have to give this medicine to Radhanath Maharaj. And I said, okay, just give me the medicine, whatever it takes to be next to him. And Radhanath Maharaj was holding his hand. And I said, Maharaj, you need to take your medicine. So Radhanath Maharaj didn't want to drink in front of him. So we went a little like 2 meters, and he started to drink his medicine. Radhanath Maharaj, Gurudev was just not talking, he was blind, like everything, he just, there. And when we both, Radhanath Maharaj and myself, we turned to Gurudev, he just gave his last breath. He went, and he left. So Radharani, and of course, the mercy of the devotees, give me this opportunity to his last breath. And yeah, that's it. What can I say? And the last thing, just to glorify the Guru a little bit more and a little further, is one day everybody was reading to him. I remember it was the last night. Everybody was sleeping on the floor, and he was just, his eyes was not blinking, and he was just breathing every once in a while. And someone told me, "You want to read for Guru Maharaj?" And I said, "Yes." So I sat next to him. He has his face here, so I read in his ear. And I start to read. I remember it was Kavi Karnapura's, what's his name? What is this? What? Ananda Vrindavan Champuye. And I explained, I was talking about the gopis and all that, And then all of a sudden, I just go into like the spiritual world. This is my perception, okay? I don't try to sound as a haji and nothing like that. I was like in a spiritual world. And I start to make and mimic the gopis' voices. I was talking like if I was a little girl, And I said, it's too far out. So I started to talk and talk and talk. And at one point, my English became perfect. Perfect. You can see my English now, 20 years ago, it was horrible. But my English became perfect. So what am I going to do? So I rise up, I just leave the book, and I went away. And one devotee, remember, Madhvacharya looked at me, and he looked at me and said, "Beautiful, beautiful, perfect." So 10 years later, I talked to Madhvacharya. I said, "Madhvacharya, remember last night? See, why you say perfect? Why you looking at me and say perfect? Because your English was perfect." So by Guru's mercy, I could read perfectly, so he can appreciate the nectar of the Holy Name. Sorry, again, I'm very worthy. Jai. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah, His Grace Mahajan Prabhu ki jai. Okay. I think we need to move forward to create more space for people. Some people are standing outside. So please kindly move forward a little bit more to create space for others. We shall now invite Her Grace Suradi Devi Dasi, our auntie. She never misses Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's Vyasa Puja. She comes all the way from Australia just to participate in this program. So we are happy to have her. So we would like to hear from Suradi Devi Dasi about Maharaj.
I feel like whatever I have to say is insignificant compared to all the wonderful disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj that knew him so well. I remember the first time I ever seen him. It was on a video with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in Durban, and they were opening the temple there. I'd never met him before. And he got up and gave this incredible speech, and he was so confident, and it was just so amazing. I just said to myself, who is this person? Who is, I knew he was my godbrother, but I didn't know who he was. And then I looked on the end of the film, and then I had his name there. And I thought to myself, I really would like to meet him, because he's just such a confident and dynamic personality. And one time he came to Australia and he gave some seminars. This was this seminar was uniting Srila Prabhupada's family. It was a few years after Prabhupada had left the world, and there was quite a bit of unrest in the movement. And he came to help us all to become, strong and fixed again by giving these beautiful seminars. And I remember we had tables and we're sitting in groups. And then I was so fortunate he actually came and sat in the table with me and a few other devotees. And just really encouraging us. We had to write things. And, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, that's good. We had to write things and give some ideas, kind of brainstorming. And he was very encouraging, and he liked what I said, my idea. I can't remember what it was now. It's too many years ago. But he was very, very encouraging, and he said, that was a very good idea. And then he started to elaborate on it. And then another time I came to one of his seminars here on forgiveness. And it was about all different devotees that had something not very nice happen to them in their life. And he said to us, he was encouraging us to forgive the personality that had done those bad things to us, whatever it was. And then he said, I think he said, first of all, I want you to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself because that this thing happened to you, and that if you thought that it was your fault that it happened. And he said, I want you to forgive yourself. And he said, and then I want you to forgive the actions of that person. Yeah, and it was, so dynamic. And I actually felt really sorry for all those devotees, but they didn't tell their story. Some had told their story. And I thought, it is so terrible that these devotees had gone through that. And I also related it because something happened to my two daughters. And so it helped me to in that situation, how to relate to it and to go back and tell them. And I went out of there, we had a break, and I went out of there, and while I was walking away, all of a sudden, it came to me that I was also a person that had something happen to me, which happens. People have things happen to them, and they block it out for many years and they forget. But Maharaj brought this out of me. And so I went back to the seminar and I realized I went there because I liked Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj so much. But I went there to help myself as well. And so it was really good. And I don't know, I've always been very attracted to him and what he's done, all the wonderful, the eye fast, and all the wonderful preaching he's done over the years. And it's like as if he's left this world, but we never have to worry, because Srila Prabhupada said that at the time that we're going to leave this world, he will be there, because the devotees asked Prabhupada, are you going to be there when we come, when we leave the world? Prabhupada said yes. And one amazing example is our god brother, Putra Maharaj. He actually left the association with devotees and he got a really bad disease. and he was in the hospital, and a whole lot of student nurses came to see him, and they were all kind of seeing this person and what he had and that. And then one day, the nurse came in, and she could see he was just about to leave his body. She actually thought that he left his body, and all of a sudden he sat up on the bed, and he went, "Prabhupada, you have come, you have come, you have come." Then lied down, and he passed away. The way the devotees found out, no one knew where he was. The way they found out, that lady, she knew he was Hare Krishna. And she met some devotees on the street. And she said, "Can you tell me who Prabhupada is?" And they said, "Prabhupada is our spiritual master." And she told the story of how our dear Pritaputra Maharaj, Tritaputra, had left the world. So any time we weren't convinced that Prabhupada was going to come at the time when we leave this world, that was the example. So we know for sure that Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is with Srila Prabhupada, and I'm sure he's kicking up a big storm and dancing his legs off with Srila Prabhupada in some other universe. He said that to us. Prabhupada said, we'll have another ISKCON in another part of the universe. So we can be sure. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Puja, Srila Prabhupada, Savior of the whole world, Puja.
And Grace Ravi Mataji Ki Jai. So now we shall invite one disciple. Vishnu Prabhu is here. Vishnu Prabhu is here. He can make his offering. If it's not available, we'll call someone else. Is it outside?
Also, if you don't mind, you can turn the notifications of your phones or just switch it off, so it's less of a distraction.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Padaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namaste Zaiti Gaura Vani Pujani Vishweshwari Vishweshwari Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Padaya Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shita Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Hare Krishna. I'm very humbled to be sitting in the presence of very senior devotees here. Please give me your blessings so I can say something that is useful for myself, and maybe you might also appreciate it. I did not have the good fortune of associating with Guru Dev, as an adult, as a full-grown adult. We were very young when it comes for visitations in Nigeria. But I remember when I was in high school, I just got the savor of dressing Srila Prabhupada for the first time. My first deity savor was being Prabhupada Pujari, and I was very excited. So on this day, I arranged the paraphernalia to go in because we had a kind of curtain that covers Prabhupada in my temple. I sat in ISKCON Benin in Nigeria. So we take in the paraphernalia, and then you ring the bell, and then someone recite the short Premadwani mantras for Prabhupada, and then he closed. So on this day, I just took the paraphernalia in front of Prabhupada, and we arranged the curtain halfway closed, and I rang the bell, and the devotee recited the mantra. Before they closed the curtain, Gurudev was chanting and pacing in the temple. So by the time the curtain was closed, I closed the curtain and I faced to the Prabhupada. When I turned my back, I just saw a very tall figure behind me, and I was very shocked, and I was really stunned momentarily. It was Gurudev, and he told me, "It's okay, you just go on doing what you're doing." So I began to fidget, purified my hand and began to address the Prabhupada. I could not coordinate because, I wasn't expecting to see him so close to me in person. So then he told me, okay, you step aside and you see the way I do it. So I stood aside and he did the seva that day. I was observing him. And Gurudev demonstrated. When I listen to classes of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, you also say that the deity is a person. If you go to the altar to render service, you should always remember we are dealing with the person, not a statue. So that was what Gurudev demonstrated that day. The way he took care of Prabhupada, like Prabhupada was right there. Actually, Prabhupada is there, but oftentimes we don't remember. I personally, sometimes I don't remember. I think it's, I just do it like a routine seva. But he did the seva with so much connection, and at the end, he looked at me and he said, "Do you like the way I took care of Prabhupada?" I said, "Yes, Gurudev." So, okay. So you continue like that. So this is one personal encounter I had with Srila Gurudev. And Hare Krishna. Srila Gurudev, please.
Jai His Grace Vishnu Prabhu ki Jai. So now we shall call upon His Grace Sujitendra Prabhu. Sujitendra Prabhu is here. He just left. He's outside. Is he gone? We'll call him, he's on the list. We'll call the next person. If he's not there, then we'll call His Grace Atul Krishna Prabhu to speak.
Jnana Shigana Jana Shalakaya Chokshush Unmilatang Jana Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Shara Shri Devi Gaudamani Vijayane Nira Vishesha Shanivadi Prashtata Deshadhane. In previous years, this ceremony, there were pictures of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj around the hall, all different aspects of his personality. This picture here, this looks to me like someone who's prepared to accept the whole burden of the earth on his shoulders out of compassion. So serious. The picture in the Samadhi Mandir, there he has a picture like a young boy, like a 16, 17-year-old young man. That picture, that's Lagos, Nigeria. So 35 years ago, although those of you who come regularly to this program, I apologize because I tell the same story every year. However, Labamatra Shadu Shanga Shabri Hoy. And as the decades go by, we realize how significant it is, even if you had a moment's association with such a devotee who was so special and so dear, and made such a contribution to this planet and the advancement of our movement.
Even a moment's association with such a great soul can be heard, just described again and again. So 35 years ago, I was in Lagos. I was collecting for Melbourne, Australia. We were selling paraphernalia. Because we were white-skinned people, we could go to African countries and we could meet the chief executive officers of companies and get money from them for developing our temples in Australia. So we went to Lagos. We heard that there was a lot of money in Nigeria because of the oil. So we went there. And we didn't even know that about ISKCON there. We didn't know. We just went. We had the Bhakti Godhead and we arrived in the airport, Harare, Lagos. Zimbabwe, Lagos. We arrived in the airport, we had the Bhakti Godhead magazine. Oh look, there's a Hare Krishna center here. So we went to the Hare Krishna temple. We arrived. And then at the temple president, his name was Omkar. He was brahmachari, a short devotee, Omkar. All the older devotees from Nigeria know Omkar. And Omkar came, he was so happy. Chandramoli Shami Maraga Shubha Agamana Ki. Omkar said to us, he was so welcoming, he appreciated it. Some visitors had come. Lagos, Nigeria. Not so many visitors go there. He was so happy to see us. He said, come and see Srila Krishnapad. Come and see Srila Krishnapad. I never heard who was Srila Krishnapad. I never even heard. So we just arrived from the plane. We were still in the clothes. We weren't in the devotional dress. Took us upstairs. We're sitting in the waiting room. The door opened. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami came out to see us. I saw that. I still remember. When I saw him, he looked, he smiled. It was like 1,000 suns rising in the room. Seeing his smile. And then he sat and he spoke to us for hours on end. He spoke to us for hours. We hadn't even taken bath. Just got off the plane. He explained. For several years he had been not coming to the GBC meetings. For several years. Actually, there was a big issue in those years regarding New Vrindavan. And His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, he had his views and he was very roughly dealt with by his godbrothers and the GBC, and it hurt him. I won't go into all the details, but he said he spoke things to me which shocked me. And he said he hadn't been able to come, and so he went to Africa. He went to Africa and absorbed it. He said he's been coming here for 6 years. He said every time he comes on a one-way ticket. Whether or not he'll go back to America, he doesn't even know. He was explaining to us many things about the style of preaching there and his style of preaching there. Mongaladi, he would come down there. It was not a very wealthy neighborhood, just near the airport. In fact, you could reach your hand up. It was like you touched the planes as they were taking off. And the sound, and the mosquitoes, and the heat. And you had to lie down at night. You had to surround yourself by 5 of those mosquito coils. You know, like the tapashvis that surround themselves by the 5 types of fire, just to get a night's sleep. And they had yam. Maharaj said the staple food in the country. It's like, I won't describe it, but yam. So after Mangalati, he would sit on Vyasa and give class. Immediately after Mangalati, sit on Vyasa and give the Bhagavatam class. And then he'd remain on Vyasa, remain sitting, and then the whole japa period. And we're all chanting japa, he's sitting on Vyasa. And then there would be Guru Puja. And then after Guru Puja was very ecstatic. In fact, the whole of the Lagos West African Yatra 35 years ago, I haven't been back, but it was so ecstatic. The preaching was so, 30, 40 brahmacharis in Lagos, Port Harcourt, all the other places, I forget the names of those towns, and farm communities. The preaching was so ecstatic. So many senior brahmacharis, they're all sannyasis now. All sannyasis are from that Lagos temple. We're going to, the Guru Puja was very ecstatic, very, very ecstatic. There was a big drum, it was a Congo drum, and it was like welded onto a stand, these big Congo drums, and they were playing the temple, boom, 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 and the dance, the African people, they can dance in the kirtan, they can dance, they have a natural affinity with the dance, the beat, the kirtan, and the Guru Puja would spill out onto the street, and Srila Gurudev, he had like a drum, like a tambourine, bigger than a tambourine, and he would play that and dance. And we'd wander down the street just outside the temple. We'd walk out the temple and go Naga Kirtan, just around the village, around the area there. And the devotee, one devotee carrying that big Congo drum on his shoulder, then the kirtan would become absorbed, extended, it'd stop, they put down the Congo drum. A very serious kirtan. And all the people, the local people, they'll come and dancing. They're so ecstatic. We did the church program, a Catholic church, it wasn't Catholic, a Christian church program. And so all the ladies were on one side, the men were on one side, in the pews. And I think they were even wearing kind of like robes type of thing, the Christian people in that particular church. And there was a pastor, and he was sitting, and he invited Sri Krishnapad to do the kirtan. And again, we're all doing kirtan up and down the aisles, and all the people in the church, they're kind of waiting. They're waiting for the acknowledgement. They're waiting for the permission. They're all there. They're wanting to dance. They're waiting. And then suddenly the preacher, he stands up. He raises his arms in the kirtan getting more and more excited. He raises his arms. He says, "Hallelujah!" Oh, that was the cue. They all jumped up. All the ladies up and down, dancing. He showed us a lot of his preaching and the work that he was doing there. He was on the television every week. The show was called The Guru. The Guru. It was a national TV show. This is before internet. TV was influential in those days. So it was a talkback show. People could call in and ask questions. And Gurudev was sitting on Vyasa-san. He's sitting on Vyasa-san with a danda, sannyasi, and then there were servants with chamors, waving, and there were some sannyasinis sitting. And the show was so popular. Hundreds of people would call in every week and ask questions, and spontaneously Srila Gurudev would answer. His preaching attracted the attention of the national leaders in Nigeria. In many places he was considered the guru of the executive leaders of that country, and he was honored with the title of a king in many of these regions of Nigeria. And he showed us his wardrobe. They had all special types of dress for different occasions. The kaftan is the African, long and beautiful silk, and different types of hats. That's why the different pictures we used to see, different types of hats that he would wear for the different events that he would be invited to by government executive heads. And his danda, his special danda, which had the Lord Nrsimhadev, it was like something that you would see Moses tap on the rocks and the Red Sea would split. Like one of those. There's like a stick, like a snake, cobra stick with Lord Nrsimhadev on the top, gold Lord Nrsimhadev. In the class, we were sitting in the class. The classes it was brahmacharis, brahmacharinis in the temple. It was very ecstatic preaching, surrendered, mood of surrender. I believe that the doors were locked 1 minute after the conch. The doors were locked. You couldn't get into Mangaladi. It was a compulsory. You had to be there on time. And then the class, very intense. They sit, after Mangaladi, sit the class, and then the japa, and Gurudev sitting there chanting japa. Of course, so many things we can say. The story comes to mind of meeting Muhammad Ali. The mystical things. He was able to achieve so many extraordinary things. He had mystic cities. He could read minds. He said in the class, I heard from his own lips, he said, I could embarrass every one of you sitting in this class with things that have gone through your mind in the last 10 minutes. He was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time, way ahead of his time as a preacher. I went to Vyasa Puja, maybe this was 20 years ago, here in Mayapur, same day. His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj was present in Mayapur. A small ceremony in the Gurukula, 2-3 disciples were there, quiet Vyasa Puja. When he's present, after he's left, that's when we realized what a contribution he made. How far ahead he was ahead of his time, decades ahead of his time. He's so much appreciated in ISKCON now. When he was preaching, it was controversial. It was controversial. We couldn't realize the great soul that was present amongst us. We couldn't realize what a contribution he made to the movement. I mean, devotee care. It came from his heart. Devotee care. Whoever heard about devotee care in the 80s, in the 90s? Devotee care. It came from his heart. And personally, his whole Leela, his departure Leela, is a devotee care. What a commitment he had, and what an effect it had on the movement. Yeah. Last thing, that he was so encouraging to each individual. We were walking to the temple with UBC time, I was walking past, he saw me, he said, I should do that Bhakti Shastri course one time. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj Shubha Vyasa Puja Mahamahotshav ki Shamaveta Go Bhakta Vrinda ki.
Praise Atu Krishna Prabhu ki. Yeah. So Atu Krishna Prabhu, we invite you again to come to Africa. The time you came is different from the time now. So please come again and see the legacy that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left behind. So we shall invite you to come. At least organize some teacher training courses for our Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vyasa students. Thank you very much. We would invite one disciple. Our program is one disciple, one guest. So I would like His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Damodara Swami. I shall invite Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Any of you who wants to speak? Who? One lady will come after. Yeah. So one of you should speak now. His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki. Yeah. So, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj has all his sannyas disciples, they are all initiating gurus. Bhakti Tirtha Damodara Maharaj, Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, they are all initiating spiritual masters, following the footsteps of His Holiness. So, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namade Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Satmade Shigaura Karuna Sakti Bhakti Tisnande Srila Bhakti Samarar Ki Jai. So many things to say. When I remember my first time I met Gurudev, that was in 1987. Yeah, I was a student. Then we heard that a guru was coming. For the first time in my life, I never met a guru. And the temple president told us that I joined ISKCON maybe 3 months. Then the Gurudev was coming. So when he came, he entered because we are bhaktas, new devotees, we could not go to the airport. So we had to wait for him and offer some flowers and garland like that. So when he came and he entered the temple, the first thing I saw that it wasn't like a normal human being for me. He's very tall, very shining, very effulgent, very smiling. Then he went to the room, and automatically the temple president gave me a short service to wash his clothes and like that. At that time, my parents were very hungry why I joined ISKCON, especially my mother. She wrote a very long letter that I kept you 9 months in my womb. And it came out, now this is what you are doing to me. To leave the house, go and meet a church which I don't know. Then I read the letter, and it was sent by my senior brother. So I did not mind it. And again, he sent the brother to me, again to the temple. So I told Gurudev that my brother is here. He wants to meet you.
So we went to the room, and he told my senior brother, like, your brother is in a good hand. I'm his father, and I'm his mother. I was very, very shocked. How can he say that? From America, and you come and say you are my father, you're my mother. So I felt very confident that yes, actually I'm in a good hand. My father and my mother in one person. So another thing is that I came to India the first time. It was arranged by him. He went to Africa, and they said he wanted to take me to Australia, something like that. Then I went to meet him in the room. That why not sending me to India, Mayapur, for Bhakti Sastri? He said yes, good idea. That was 2002. I came for the first time in Mayapur. He asked me to take some books and book distribution and get some money and buy my ticket. I think Bhakti Sastri was in November, but this Bhakti Sastri started. I still remember Atul was my teacher. The Bhakti Sastri started 2 weeks, and I was still there in Africa, struggling to get ticket to come. Then he sent me a message. Are you in India now? I said, no, Maharaj, not Gurudev. I said, what happened? I said, ticket. No, a ticket. I said, okay, no problem. I will arrange for your god sister. I think Madhurya Lila Mataji. So she arranged for the money, and I had it and paid my ticket. Now I told him that yes, I got the money and I got the ticket. He said, now you can go to Mayapur, Hare Krishna. Then two things I remember again, that when I came to India, as I got 1 year visa. I did Bhakti Sastri 4 months, 5 months, like the Mayapur. Then he told me, okay, now you can visit other places, Vrindavan, other places. And I came to Vrindavan. Then I fell in love to Vrindavan. So I changed my mind that why should we go back to Africa again? So I was making some plans to stay longer. So I was thinking how to tell him that I want to stay longer. So I wrote him a letter that try to find some excuses, try to be smart. That many reasons why I have to stay in India. So I was expecting that the response. Then I heard that in Vrindavan, all the trees are kalpavrikshas. So with my foolish brain, that was Vrindavan group in Bhakti Sastri Goshala area. So I went to stand down under a tree. I was praying to the tree, Kalpavriksha. See, please, I want to stay more in Vrindavan. Please help me. Then something from my mind told me that will depend on your guru. Then I look at the tree and say, this tree, very small tree, you know. So I went to a bigger tree, bigger one, big shade. Again, same prayer. Wow. Dear Kapaviksha, I want to stay longer in Vrindavan. Again, that will depend on your guru. So what? Okay, the last chance for me now is to go and read the response. And he has 2 ways of responding to his disciples. I've done that for me. Either he mentioned your name, direct name, or he say, my son. I have that experience. When he say my son, means the message is very, very soft. But when he mentioned your name, means this big chastisement there. So I went to the internet, Vrindavan. I was first to see whether he said my son or my name. So I look at say, oh, he said my son. My son scale was okay. Then I read it, very one line, just one line. He said, you will have to go back to Africa and share your experience with devotees there. Well, I was not happy, but at the same time happy. And also, I remember that time also I was in Vrindavan with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and we decided to go and take baths in Radha Kund, where we had in the class, Bhakti Shashi class, that one should not take part in Radha Kund unless he has the mercy or the blessing of the permission of his guru. So both of us were discussing whether we should go and take part in Radha Kund. So he said we should write to Gurudev. So we wrote him, then he asked me to go and check the message. Then Gurudev said, no, you just go and pay obeisances to Radha Kund. Don't take bath, take some drop of water, put it on your head, that's all. You see? And last thing, that I always remember, that it is very good to have a guru, because the guru is an international, not even international, is a universal guru, because we had one god brother who left the body, Damodara, and when he left the body, Gurudev was in America. He told us to make the Shraddha ceremony like that. So a week later, I had a dream that it was like a big field. One part was dark and another part was light. And many bodies was lying down on the ground. So two persons come from that place, take one body and enter the dark place. They come again, take one body, they enter into that place. So one by one like that. So at the point they came and took the body of our Guru Damodara. So when they entered the dark place, a third person came. Another one, fourth now, there were four. So in the dream it was very clear that was at Yamaraj court. Because that devotee was very dynamic in terms of kirtan, book distribution, but he also has some character not very good also. So it's like, arguments, like a court case. Yes, you say, this guy, you want to send him to hell because of this. Then Gurudev says, what about this one? Like argument against argument, with big smile. So finally, instead of keeping our godbrother there in that place, they brought him back to the light. Which means it was clear that those who entered that place, they were going to hell. And my godbrother, our godbrother, was saved by Gurudev, because Gurudev was like a lawyer for him. So when I had that dream, I said, yes, actually, I have to take this process very, very, very serious, because Gurudev just saved my godbrother. He can also save me one day. And last, when I took my first initiation, I was experiencing so many difficulties, like I never had before. So I wrote him, Gurudev, I have so many problems like this. He said, yes. Have you ever seen a student without, exam? You have seen that? And now that you are initiated, you are officially on the path of devotion service. So a guru or a teacher or Krishna, they never give a test to a devotee, to a disciple, that is beyond the capacity of that devotee or that disciple. That if you fail, it means you are below standard. It means you didn't follow the lesson in the class. So those two things, the dream I had and that instruction, always keep me. So any situation I found myself in, I say, yes, I just remember that there is no obstacle that's beyond your capacity. You can do it. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai. So we have to follow the line. We have Sorry. Is Sujitendra Prabhu back now? Sujitendra. Is he here now? No. Okay. So then we shall invite Akladar Prabhu. But you have to be very brief, 5 minutes, not more, not less. You have to be very brief. If you are not brief, I will snatch the microphone from you. Please. Please.
I hope you got a big club. I need it.
5 minutes. On the disciple side, Shama Mahita Mataji is ready to speak after Shama Mahita Mataji.
Namo Krishnaya Krishna Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktivedanta Swami Amni Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauracharni Shesha Sangvari Pastati Rishtani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Sari Gauracharni Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. For a conditioned soul like me to be in this assembly is inconceivable practically. Especially at the feet of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And the kind of patience and tolerance, encouragement especially how Prabhupada's given it through some very special personalities. And Maharaj is definitely one of them. He was always one of my heroes. And Prabhupada was still present on the planet. He was such a, you could say, a transcendental James Bond in Russia. And getting the books into the libraries with a black body in Russia. To the professors, completely fearless and successful. And how that was such a source of inspiration for Prabhupada, right up to his last breath. It was his giving me life. And how when Maharaj would come, even here in Mayapur, that he was with Prabhupada. Here, Vrindavan. And he would have Maharaj come and give his report about the books getting into the universities of all over Russia. And he would just rub his head with such affection. He was a real, that was the days we're going to have a revolution. That was the revolution. And he personified that. Prabhupada is the Senapati Guru who embodies Vrindavan in the one day of Brahma on behalf of all of our acharyas in the jungles of, in Africa and Moscow, in Japan, in Burija. He's the persona, revolutionary, the real revolutionary, undefeatable, fearless, with all the qualities of compassion and forgiveness and kindness of the Vaishnava, to turn the demoniac heart into the pure devotee. And he never related to me. He never, like Lokanath Maharaj also, never related to me with all that static stuff that I had to struggle through so many decades. All that false ego and pride, and lust, madness, diagnosed manic depressive, and just raw surrender. I'm still wearing saffron. But he never related to me with all that eccentricity that I had to struggle with. He always related to me as I was inside. And I remember in New York, in West 55th, on one of the other on the floors where all the offices were, and outside, he just gave me the book. And I remember he outside in the hall, outside all these offices, that he talked to me, and because at that time there were all these GBC zones and acharyas and all that stuff was going on in America. There were all the zones, and there's no real harmony in the movement. And I told him, I said, Maharaj, when I was in Europe, Bhagavan would organize all these big Sankirtan festivals in New Mayapur. And everybody would come, and they would all tell Sankirtan stories and their different tips, how to increase book distribution. And then we all come together and get really inspired. And I said, why can't we have that in America? And he said, America is so big and so much space, so it's really difficult to do that here. But he said, you never forget that mood. You never forget that spirit. To always see the good and always to do whatever you can with anyone and everyone. To be part of the solution, not part of the problem, and to bring the movement together. That's the kind of person, that's the kind of devotee, that's the kind of Vaikuntha man. Prabhupada man. Prabhupada man. Not just his follower, not just an anuga, but same quality. It's one thing to be a follower, it's another thing to have the same quality. That's a real disciple. Same mood, same quality. So I just pray. I just pray that I can become a disciple at his feet and the feet of others who are in there with Prabhupada, to become like them at their feet. As Chotabai, younger brother.
Your time is up.
So I'm finished.
Thank you.
You didn't hit me with a club.
No, I won't do it.
I made it.
Thank you. His Grace, Aklada Prabhu, okay. So I think we'll invite someone. So one disciple will speak, and then we'll go to His Holiness Chandramoli Maharaj. So Shama Mohita Bataji, please, the floor is yours. You're going there to see what is happening.
Hare Krishna. Please forgive me because my English is not so good, but I try that to study, but represent to you how much reading Gurudev our mind. So my godbrother, we living in Hungary, and he start translating Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj books, and he is so inspiring to be his disciple. His name that time Stefan, but he not get any support. Contact him, and he go to Radha Shyama Sundar deities front of the altar and pray so hard from his heart. If he my guru, he need visit me in Hungary, and some miracle happened because next day Bhakti Tirtha Swami visit in Hungary, Krishna farm, because he want travel to Croatia, but his flight canceled and have a time in Hungary. He in capital city Budapest changed his flight, so he thinking he will go to Krishna and visit his farm. And next day he was there. And how I also get initiation, he invited me to meet him in Gitanagari and asking me, can I want initiation from him in 2005? But I'm not sure because I never see him in personal. And that time I not speak any English. So I just have some translating, and many devotees told me I'm his disciple because my mood, and them recommend to me Bhakti Tirtha Swami, but I'm few years just want Shivaram Swami, but he rejected me. He told me, not I'm your guru. So after I contact Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and he just next day reply me on his email and invite me to Croatia camp, to Pula. But that time he not come because get sick with his cancer. So I feel so sad, and his all disciples want planning go to Gitanagari, meet him in his Vyasa Puja, and nobody get visa to travel to America. And when I get this negative answer, I go to security and ask him if my family member will dying in America, and I really want to meet him, how I get visa. And fortunately, I have one twin sister, and next time I go with him back to American embassy with his picture where he had a husband and the daughter, the son, and I get visa miracle. And then I in Gitanagari, and I see how in connection with his disciple, this is melting my heart, and I'm sure that he my Guru Maharaj. And I also just pray to Radha Damodara deities and tell to them, if he my Guru, can you please send me some very strong signal, because I want your permission. And next day have initiation, and we are all get service to make garland for next day initiation devotees. And when I make the garland, his secretary see me and told me, now we have the disciple meeting, can you go there? And because I don't speak English but understand something, I follow his words. But after I take my dictionary and I collect the words and I try that, I'm sure I don't get initiation, I don't have recommendation letter. And he start hesitate and tell me, okay, I will go and ask him personal, you will get initiation or not. So he go back his room, and after a few minutes come and told me, yes, you tomorrow get initiation. So he amazing how understand my mind and give it to me very clear answer, and next day I get initiation from him. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami ki jai, Krishna.
And Grace Sama Mohita Mataji ki jai. So, I think we have His Holiness Chandramoli Maharaj will speak. And then Soma Prabhu, I saw him sitting there. Is he around? Soma Prabhu? Okay, next after Maharaj.
Give me the signal when you want me to quit.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyanajana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Maum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvasesa Sunyavari Paschatya Desatarine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shri Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine.
Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asri Tatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine.
Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki. So I'm so happy to see all of the devotees here. It just shows the glories of Bhakti Tirtha Swami and how much he impacted not only the society with all of the contributions he made to bring Krishna consciousness in different places around the world, but how he touched the heart of so many persons on a personal level. Fortunately, I knew Bhakti Tirtha Swami back in the 1970s. We were in New Vrindavan. He was mostly coming in and out, but eventually, of course, he took sannyas from Kirtananda Swami. That was in 1979. Or 78 or 79, I'm not sure. But, of course, his life was a life of constant giving. This is the way I could see it. And I used to mention it to them, you're always giving. He said, yeah, that's because of my mother. He would say that. My mother, she taught me from a very early age in life. He said, whatever you have, share it with others. If you have a little bit more, if you have two or something, give one away. And we know he grew up in a very, what we say, impoverished type of atmosphere. Family was not very well-to-do economically, but still, he would always talk about his mother and how she always inspired him to give, even though they had very little themselves. He became a preacher when he was a young boy in Christian churches. And sometimes you would notice, maybe when we were with him in time he was with us, once in a while he would stutter. Not very often, but sometimes in his speech he would stutter. When he was small, he was always stuttering. But then he said, after I started to speak about God, the stutter started to go away. And when he was a young boy, even at 10 years old, he was giving talks about God in the Christian atmosphere in the churches that he grew up. So very early in life, he was always in that mood of Christian, God consciousness. I have so many stories. I could probably take. Radhanath Swami spoke 7 hours about Bhakti Tirtha Swami at one time. And another time he spoke 5 hours. I mean, we could speak hours and hours about his activities. But one of the things I wanted to emphasize was how much he cared about each and every devotee on a very personal level. And I saw that too. And just to pick up on Atul Krishna's statement, how he could read the minds. This is not some kind of like euphemism or exaggeration. He could do that. And I was victim to that a few times. One time I was with him in Gita Nagari, and I was with him for, when he would come to Gita Nagari, I'd immediately call him up and I'd say, Maharaj, can I come? He said, yes. He said, but I can't give you much time because I got so many devotees that I have to see, and I've got emails and so many other things. He said, but if you come, you give classes, that way I can get my services done. So I said, fine. I used to come, he would give me a little time. And when I was with him, I noticed that he would spend quality time with many of the families and dealing with their personal problems, the children and others. So one time I saw that continuously happening day after day, and I was thinking, he's a sannyasi, and he's spending so much time with women and children. I was thinking like that, and he turned around, looked at me, he said, they need it. They require it. So, okay. I didn't say anything else after that. But I was kind of like overwhelmed at how he could actually pick up on your mind. He could read minds, and he was a mystic. There was no question about that. We would talk about different types of, different levels of consciousness. He would talk about that. And you could see in one of his first book on, I think it was, what was it, the, what series was that? The Spiritual Warrior #1. Yeah, that was just all about mysticism. Yeah. But he used it in Krishna consciousness. Although I noticed he had a tendency, he had an attraction for it, but because he had that power, he used it to bring devotees in. And many times when I would see him spend time with devotees, I would be there. Sometimes he'd be waiting outside, and he'd be talking. And devotees would go in, and they would have, difficulties, some problems. They would come to see him. People would come from different places just to talk to him. And then after some time spending with him, they would walk out and they would be smiling. Their whole demeanor would change. They were more satisfied, happy. So I said to him one time, I said, what do you say to them? He said, I don't say hardly anything. I just listen. They need someone to talk to. They need someone to express what they are going through. Even if I don't agree so much about what they say, I let them talk. And actually, they start to solve their own problems just by allowing someone who cares about them, he says, I care, just to be that listener. And he was good at that. He could listen. And in such a way, that person would be transformed. He would say something. He would ask questions every occasionally. But most of the time, he was just that sympathetic ear. And so many people were transformed because of that. They actually became happy. They felt their Krishna consciousness were coming back again. So that was Maharaj. He was very, very personal. Very personal. And it was not only personal, but as in a compassionate way. I'll speak about something different now. Is kirtans, which is really amazing. We were in New Vrindavan in the year 2000, and it was a festival. It was an annual festival. And so devotees had come from different places, and Lokanath Swami Maharaj was there, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Radhanath Swami, and many others. And the temple room was packed. And this was Mangal Arati on the first day of the festival. So Lokanath Swami was asked to lead the Mangal Arati. So, Mangal Arati is, you just kind of, you don't get into a lot of ecstatic dancing in Mangal Arati. It's kind of like, the mood is more sweet, more, deeper, and maybe a little ecstasy at the end. But as Lokanath Swami was leading, Bhakti Tirtha just jumped up and started dancing. And we all started to what? Okay, so we joined him in the dancing. And the kirtan went on through Mangal Arati, through Tulsi Arati, through Japa, through Guru Puja, through Srimad Bhagavatam class time, and then some devotees left for Prasadam. And the kirtan was still going on. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami was leading. We were running all over the temple, dancing and jumping, and I can still remember that kirtan. It was like, wow. And his dancing was so animated that he would pull everyone into the dance. And even if you didn't want to dance, you danced. Because he inspired just by his enthusiasm, by his way of relating to people. He'd bring them into the kirtan, and they would so much absorbed in that mood of kirtan. He loved kirtan. There were so many examples of him inspiring devotees in dancing. He would do the snake dance that was in Dhira. He'd get to the front of the line, and then he'd have everybody grab on his shoulder, and there'd be a whole line of devotees throughout the whole temple, and they'd be going this way and that way. He'd be leading and dancing like this. And the whole temple would dance. So Maharaj was really a ball of enthusiasm. One time I was with him in Gitanagari, and there was a economic problem. There was some money that was needed to pay off some of the land that was there was a payment that was due on the Gitanagari land. And he was talking to me, he was saying, I don't know how to get the money. And then he said, well, some of the loggers want to come in and cut our trees, and they want to give us thousands of dollars. He said, but I can't do that. I can't do that to the trees. So he was kind of a little like stuck where to raise the money. The money was $35,000, and he had a week to get it because it was a payment that was due at that time. So there was a festival. And I was with him. It was an evening program. It was a few days festival. And so that night, he went on the altar to lead the evening arti, the Gaur arti. So he's leading the arti. And then at the end of the arti, he comes over to me and he sits next to me and he said, Damodar, Radha Damodar, the deities there. Damodar spoke to me on the altar. I said, oh? He said, yeah. He said, when I was doing the altar, he kept saying, Henry. And then I said, I can't ask Henry. Everybody asks Henry for money. And then, as I continued the arti, Damodar spoke again, Henry. So he comes off the altar, off the altar, and I said, there's Henry. He's sitting in the back of the temple room. He said, I'm going to ask him. You watch and see what happens. He didn't want to do it because Henry was a very wealthy person that was very generous, but people would always take advantage of his generosity. And so he went over to Henry, and I'm watching. He's sitting there, and they're talking, and Henry doesn't look happy at all. And then after some time, the talk goes on, and all of a sudden, a big smile comes on Henry's face. And then Maharaj comes back to me. He said, amazing. Henry just won a lottery, and he won a car, which is worth $35,000. So he's going to take that car and sell it and give us the money. I said, well, of course, you know better than I do. But the point was that he had so much faith that by following the Lord's instruction, then the money came. Well, that was a pretty amazing, that was one amazing thing. And pretty much the end. One more. Okay. This one is good. We would, this is just a quick one. We were sitting together in his room, and he said, last night, this was back in the early 80s, maybe even before then, we were sitting in his room in Gitanagari, and he said, this is just when he first came to Gitanagari, and he said, Prabhupada came to me in a dream last night, and I was sitting at the lotus feet of Prabhupada. It was just me and Prabhupada together. And then Prabhupada went like this, pointing to the door behind me. And I looked, and I saw all these black-bodied people standing outside the door. And Prabhupada said, let them in. Let them in. So then I understood Prabhupada wanted me to preach in Africa. He said Prabhupada wanted me to preach in Africa. So he did. And we heard a few things, but one little story that he would tell me about being in Africa is that things don't work so good in Africa on a material level. It's just like that. So he was in Nigeria and he had to take a plane. So when they were getting onto the plane, they way overbooked the plane. I mean, it was more people had already bought their tickets than could fit on the plane. So they were stuck. They didn't know what to do. So he said, they told us all to get off the plane with our luggage and go to the other end of the runway and run. And the first ones that got on the plane were the ones that were going to get that trip. He said, I was fast. I got on. Another time in Nigeria, same thing. They got on the plane wouldn't start. So they told us all to get off and push. So we were pushing the plane. We jump-started the plane. You know how you do that with cars? You gotta push it. So what the point I want to make is that preaching in Africa was not, at least in those times, it was very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. And Maharaj had to undergo a lot of tribulations. They actually tried to kill him at one time. He told me the story, how he had been preaching to one leader in Africa, in one particular country. I can't say which country it was. And the ministers were getting envious. So they did some voodoo on his driver. So he was in the car, and they put a spell on his driver. And while he was in the car, he was in the back seat of the car, the driver all of a sudden turned into the head-on, the direction of the cars coming in was a head-on collision. He said, but somehow or other Krishna saved me. Krishna saved me. He said, I got a scratch on my leg and that was all, but Krishna saved me in that. So he's just to illustrate how difficult it was for him to preach in Africa. And there were so many problems. The whole thing in Liberia, that's a whole nother story. But thank you very much for taking time and being here and honoring Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Chandramani Swami Maharaj ki jai. Actually, Maharaj is one of the devotees very close to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, as you can see. Himself, Vadana Maharaj, and I think Sachidananda Maharaj also. Yes. So thank you for sharing these intimate stories with us. Yeah. So we shall now hear from Suman Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Wow. So thank you very much for letting me say a few words about Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Sorry I got here a little late, so I may be repeating some stories that have already been said. I don't know. But when I think of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I always think of his huge smile and how personal he was with everyone, but that's what I remember about him most. Even though I was kind of a small devotee, he would still be very friendly to me, and he would always be encouraging. So I was there at his sannyas initiation. Chandramauli Maharaj told a similar story. And I remember at that day, when Mangal Artik started, same thing. He just leapt into the air and he just started dancing like a madman right at the very beginning of Mangal Artik. And of course, I was thinking, well, he's not going to keep it up very long. But he did. You know, he was going back and forth the whole length of the temple, and he danced for the whole of the Mangal Arati. And then, of course, later that day, he took sannyas. Interesting little story is he had a temple in Washington, D.C., and I forget the address, but it was all, African-American body devotees, and he was in charge of it. And I was out with another devotee selling candles from New Vrindavan, and we decided that we would go there to see Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I don't even remember if he had sannyas yet, but he was famous as Gyani Shama, as an unbelievable book distributor with the library party. But actually, I think he was already sannyas. So anyways, we came to the temple. It was for Mangal Artik. We got there for Mangal Artik time. And after Mangal Artik, he came up to me and he asked me if I would give the Srimad Bhagavatam class. So I was a little surprised, but he's very persuasive. And he asked me to give the Bhagavatam class. So when it was time for the Bhagavatam class, I sat down on the cushion and chanted Jai Radha Madhava. We read the verse and the purport. And then my mind just went blank. I was just sitting on the cushion in big, long, awkward silence. And one of the devotees who was living there, he asked a question. And I don't remember the exact question, but it was what you call a loaded question. It was philosophical, but I couldn't actually understand why he was asking this question. But Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj just jumped right in and started answering the question. And they actually got into an argument, and they started actually yelling at each other. And it went on for a little while. But Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was very strongly preaching and preaching. And pretty soon it kind of settled down and they got into a nice conversation and he was, preaching. And then the time was up for the Bhagavatam class. That took the whole time. And so afterwards, there was prasadam and I took prasadam and I was getting ready to leave. He came up to me and he said, "Oh, thank you for giving the Srimad Bhagavatam class." And I said, "But I didn't say anything." And he said, "Yeah, but just because you were here, we were having this problem in the temple, but now it seems like it's all worked out." So he was very encouraging like that. And still to this day, I still think it's probably the best class I ever gave. I didn't say anything. And some stories that, I'll keep this brief. There's a lot of other devotees to speak. But when he was getting ready to go to the Russia, the Soviet Union, to preach, he wanted to get the blessings from Srila Prabhupada. So he went to Srila Prabhupada's room and they, introduced him and he asked Srila Prabhupada for his blessings and Srila Prabhupada gave him his full blessings. And then Srila Prabhupada said to all the devotees that were there, he said, "I want you to bless him also." And one devotee said, "Well, Srila Prabhupada, you already blessed them. What good are our blessings?" And Srila Prabhupada said, "No, every devotee has some power to give blessings. So I want you all to also give him blessings." So sometimes, I heard many years later, sometimes he would say, "I've been blessed by the best." And he was, Srila Prabhupada and his devotees. So I think I'll stop here. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It's Grace Samakramuki Jai. So now we shall call. All right, so now we have other distinguished speakers here. We want to alternate disciple and guest speaker. So we'll ask Yaduna Prabhu to give his offering brief. Then we invite His Holiness Sundar Chaitanya Maharaj, and then followed by Mahavishnu Swami, and then His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamni Namaste Saraswati Devi Govani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunavandi Paskatya Desatari. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Tinamni Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sutatmani Sri Gora Karuna Sakti Bhakti Tinamni. Hare Krishna. I don't know how to start, but first I want to appreciate this very wonderful opportunity given to say something about Guru Dev, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. By the mercy of my father, we were brought to the movement when we were very small, 4 or 5 years old. And because as kids, also, just like Prabhupada said, children were born into the movement, they are very fortunate and they are great souls. Although I was not like born into the movement, but we enjoy some facilities. There are some etiquette, you don't eat from the Guru's plate, you don't sit on the same seat with the Guru, but as children, we had these opportunities. Sometimes we sit with the Guru on the same chair, sometimes we take prasadam from the plate. Later we grew up to understand that, oh, this is not the etiquette. So just like Arjuna was apologizing to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11 after seeing the universal form. So I'm also apologizing. Whatever mistake we made then as children, we should be forgiven. But Guru allowed us because of his personal love for us as kids growing up in the temple then. My parents were not devotees when they gave birth to me. But somehow or the other, my father became a devotee. My mother refused to become a devotee. She's a Christian, but Anytime His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj is coming, is visiting, my mother will come to the temple. My mother don't like devotees, but she loves Sri Krishna Prabhupada. She said because Sri Krishna Prabhupada is always smiling and is full of life. Just by seeing him, you become lively. So each time Sri Krishna Prabhupada is coming to the temple, she comes. And ever since Gurudev left the physical world, my mother stopped coming to the temple. So I'm praying that Gurudev blesses her so that she can revive her consciousness and become a devotee. Gurudev actually is very, very merciful. I was 18 years, I was living in Ibadan Temple when I got initiation. I was not recommended for initiation, maybe I was very young. We were two young boys, myself and my immediate younger brother, living in the temple. So devotees traveled from from Ibadan, they went to Port Harcourt. Somehow or the other, we got a call came to the temple, then it was landline in the other building, so they came calling us in the temple that there was a call coming for us. So I was the one who went to pick the call, and it was His Holiness Bhakti Damodara Swami Maharaj who made the call that Maharaj wanted me to come to Port Harcourt for initiation. Somehow or the other, but that special mercy, that was how I was initiated. But I want to use this day to actually reflect on some of the methods of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. There are some philosophy or some teachings in our scriptures that if you have to preach to non-devotees, it may be a little bit difficult to present them. But Sri Krishna Prabhupada devised a means or a language with which you can present these things very easily and very easily digestible, just like a doctor may give prescription, give some bitter medicine, but the mother will know how to quote the medicine that the child will happily take the medicine. Just like in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, text 62 and 63, Lord Krishna was explaining the circle of action by contemplating of the object of sense to develop attachment, loss, anger, and all the rest. So Lord Krishna put it in another language. He said, what your thoughts, they become your words. What's your words, they become your action. What your action becomes your habit. What your habit becomes your character. What your character becomes your nature. And first, you develop a character or you develop a habit, then the habit now makes you. And if a person develops a negative habit, then that becomes the end of the person. Just like Bhagavad said, one fall down again to the material world too. So that was very interesting. And also, Yudhishthira Maharaj is addressed as Adyanta Shashru, one whose enemy is never born. By material analysis, it's not possible to say that a person has no enemy. It's not materially practical. You must have an enemy, somehow or the other. But Sri Krishna Prabhupada put it in a way, in one of the principles he taught, he said, anytime there is a problem in a relationship, first you have to point at yourself as the person who is at fault, because if you point it to others, you are extending the problem. So if I have to each time point at myself as the person who is at fault, it means I'm not taking anyone to be my enemy. So no enmity. Very simple and is easy to digest and relate with. His Divine Grace, Bhakti Tirtha Swami Prabhupada, he wrote about the principles for community building. And of course, like His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj translated and made some commentary on this. At the end of the whole thing, he summarized it into 4 principles. Very easy, anybody can carry it in the head, you can remember anywhere, anytime. And one of the principles is, you should see the people you are living with right now as the people you are going to live together and die together. Just imagine if I have this consciousness. Number one, I will be very loving to everybody. I will see everybody as or as part of my family. The other principle there, which you also mentioned, is that when you are the quality of love you have for the person you claim to be your beloved, you should treat all others with that same quality of love. So this is very heart-touching. And many other principles, because I don't want to go over time. But then, in one of his teaching also, in many places he mentioned that the test of a good leader is the ability to make other leaders. Sri Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj left this material world, Actually, I think before a few months before I left, Maharaj was made a science. We have now also Srivas Vanachari, who is also initiating Guru. We have Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj. When Srila Krishna was leaving, we felt the pain. We felt that he was leaving too early. He was leaving too early. But one left, then he gave us 4. Just like we were told in Arjuna said, Karna promised to kill Arjuna, and he told Kunti, if I take 1, you will still have 5. So Sri Krishna left physically, but he gave us 4. So we are very fortunate that we have him, and we appreciate these pure devotees that he gave to us. And I'm just praying that I am blessed so that I become an instrument in carrying out some of the things that he wants us to do, like having a Vaishnava community, cottage industry, and so on and so forth. I just concluded GBC College, and the project which I did there is self-sustainable Vaishnava community. So please, all of you bless me, Gurudev bless me, so that this will come to reality. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Yadana Prabhu. Okay. So now we shall invite, following the lineup, we have Rida Prabhu. Is Rida Prabhu here? Rida Prabhu is here.
Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj ki jai. Namo Vishnu Vidai Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kachani Visesha Sundari Puskita Visitani. So we only have a few minutes to speak. 5 minutes. So I'll make it short and brief. There are many exalted God brothers here waiting. So, in my association with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I'm very grateful for his association and his compassion. But when I read articles that he's written, especially I published in my book a sequence that he wrote several years ago, and I'm just going to quote a few paragraphs. It's called Strengthen Community. Members of a tightly knit community have the interest of the whole of heart and become their brothers and sisters, keepers. Being our brothers and sisters keepers means loving one another as we love ourselves. We cannot muster the faith to care for anyone but ourselves if we fear resource shortage or do not understand who supplies these resources. Nothing material lasts forever, but the love we give to one another and the sacrifices that we make for something greater than ourselves endure because they come from a higher source. Paragraph. At the root word community is an idea of communion, meaning wholeness, communication, cooperation, commonality, where people come together to discover what they can take or use rather, or what they can share and how they can serve. A sense of community only emerges as a result of honest communication, cooperation, and fellowship. Community without nothing to communicate is simply an artificial of grouping without life. When a community has a genuine validity, the members have something to communicate and share with each other. Each member is straightforward, while at the same time being sensitive to the feelings of others. Real community is never exclusive. When the nucleus of community is strong, it becomes flexible through the balance and adjust, expand, and include the new. Real community is never exclusive or ambiguous. The strong community can only give us wonderful guidance and security to help us cope with our daily challenges. So thank you. Thank you, Maharajas. Thank you for that. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, His Grace Vita Prabhu. Okay. Aye. So now we shall invite Sundar Chaitanya Prabhu to speak following the queue. Sundar Chaitanya Maharaj, sorry, I don't know.
Om Jnanantimirandasya Jnanandana Shashurvitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurunaya Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namine. Hare Krishna. First of all, I'd like to express my heartfelt joy for being here for this grand ceremony, Vyasa Puja, of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. I would say one of the biggest Harinam Sankirtan I've attended with big crowd in Mauritius, my country, was in the presence of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Huge Harinam with his drum, you call it? Tambourine, right? And everybody will be dancing. Very energetic, lively. And I also want to, Maharaj was saying about this kirtan that started with Mangalarati, Tusi Puja, Guru Puja, no Bhaktam class, it ended with Mahaprasada Govinde. And Lokanath Maharaj said that, at that time he said, no, Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj said, I was dancing because Lokanath Maharaj was singing. And Lokanath Maharaj said, I was singing because I was inspired by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj dancing. Haribo. And I remember my Guru Maharaj told one he had a dream, Lokanath Maharaj had a dream, one dream. And, no, sorry, before the dream, Lokanath Maharaj, he wanted to go to America, to Gitanagari, to meet His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, to meet him. This was during the time he was not well. But somehow he was busy, could not make it, could not go to America to meet Maharaj. But then later on the news came that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had went to the spiritual world, gone already, left his body, went back to Godhead. And that time Lokanath Maharaj had a dream. And in his dream, what happened in the dream, he was sitting and he was having prasada. And on the side, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was sitting for Prashadam also. That was in the dream. And Lokanath Maharaj asking, hey, what happened to you? I've heard you left us already. I've heard that you left. You know? And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said, yes, I've left. But now I am on my way back. And on my way back, I've decided to come and see you. As if he understood that Lokanath Maharaj wanted to meet him. So he said, I am on my way back to Godhead, but on the way I have come to see you. And that's how we understood the mind of Lokanath Maharaj. And then the dream went further. And the dream Lokanath Maharaj was dreaming about the spiritual world. He was into the spiritual world now. And there was a big pandal program. And in that dream, we saw so many devotees, small devotees, like Brother Maharaj and others were there. And there was a crowd, big crowd, and someone was giving class on the asana. Guess who he was? His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj. Hey! He was there giving the class. And that's pretty sure. Yes. And Maharaj also, as we all know, left his world in Gitanagari, right? He was there. I've heard it. I want to tell something about it. So, a glorious preacher or a glorious warrior or spiritual warrior, you can say, Maharaj wrote about spiritual warrior. What Krishna says is one who died in the battlefield, right? Glorious warrior is glorious to those who fight in the war and in the body. And we have the case of Bhishma Pitama. Bhishma Dev left his body in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Srila Prabhupada also wanted to leave his body in the battlefield of preaching, right? He didn't want to leave the body in hospital. He wanted to leave his body in the battlefield of preaching. That's why at the end he wanted to go to on the bullock cart to Govardhan. Of course, as you know the story, there were two parties. One party did not want Prabhupada to go because Prabhupada was not well. And one party did not want Prabhupada to go to fulfill his desires. Both teams were good. One side wanted to please Prabhupada's desire, but the other team, they wanted to also to look after Prabhupada's health. So Srila Prabhupada, last year, the devotees took Prabhupada on a bullock cart to Govardhan, after 45 years, to fulfill Prabhupada's desire to go out. So, similarly, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, I would say he had preferred to leave his body in Gitanagari because this is his place of preaching. He could have gone to Vrindavan. He could have gone to Vrindavan, leave his body at last moment, like many devotees also do. That's also perfect, that's also nice. But following the footsteps of Bhishma Pitama and Prabhupada, he also wanted to leave his body in his place where he was preaching. That is glorious. It is not glorious to leave one's body at home, right? It is glorious to leave body outside of home. So Maharaj, this was his preaching field. That's why he actually left there. And so Bhagavatam explained, Tapyanti loka tapena sadavaha prasojana. Paramaharadhanam. Dhira explained that great soul accepting voluntary suffering and for the suffering of others. When I read that verse, and that actually made my mind think that Maharaj is a personification of that verse. Great soul accept voluntary suffering for the suffering of other people. Although he had cancer, when he spent his lifetime to deliver people to preach Krishna consciousness. Dadichi, Bhagavatam. He said, this body that we have is not meant for us. Sorry, it is not meant to be enjoyed by us. Body will be given by Krishna. It is not meant to be enjoyed by us. It is meant to be used for the benefit of other people. And this is Parama Aradhanam Tati, the greatest worship. Parama Aradhanam. Aradhanam means worship. The greatest worship. It is used body for the benefit of other people. And one more story. I heard of this story that Maharaj went to of darshan of Jagannath in Jagannath temple. Yeah. So he was dressed like a South Indian priest, with lungi and no kurta, just chadar covering the head so that they could not spot him. So Maharaj had darshan and no one was able to spot him. So a nice darshan and he came out. Nicely. But then he had, you were there? Yes, he wanted to give us an time. It was greedy. You know, wow, I can go next time. But I think for the second time they spot him. And they tried to catch him, but Maharaj is swift runner. Who can catch Maharaj? He came out. So I'm so grateful. One time I asked His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who is a very dear disciple, Maharaj, how is it that you are so serious in your Krishna consciousness? Maharaj, you all know Maharaj. Very serious, you cannot play around, you cannot joke, you cannot, so serious in this Krishna consciousness. I don't know if you can tell a story, Maharaj, but I just did the point. Maharaj told me that how he became like this is because every time, every moment, whatever his spiritual master Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was doing, and His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was watching carefully everything that he was doing, every single moment Maharaj was watching in detail. And this is why he has become like that. Dhira! So I'm so grateful to have around me Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj has left, like you said. They are all spiritual masters, Damodara Maharaj and Bhakti Charunesha Maharaj, Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj. And they are so humbly sitting down. I'm feeling a little bit embarrassed to be sitting on a chair, and the Maharajas are sitting there. They're so spiritual master. So I feel I should sit down also. So let's Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, yes, Puja, Mahamahosava. Thank you.
His Holiness Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki. So now we shall invite His Holiness Mahavishnu Swami to say a few words. I think we are going to start arranging for the offering. Yeah, we needed some table. What's the time? Okay, so I think most of you have received coupons for Prashadam. The Prashadam will take place at Prabhupada Samadhi on the verandas outside. Yeah.
So, I was in the class this morning, Vasudeva glorifying Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and Vasudeva said one thing that Bhakti Tirtha Swami had often said, was that we shouldn't maintain, we should innovate. We shouldn't maintain, but we should innovate. So that I was wondering, what am I going to do? Because Bhakti Tirtha Swami invited me to give a talk. And I hardly had any association with Bhakti Tirtha Swami at all. except in one kirtan in Ghana. And of course, Bhakti Tirtha Swami made me look like a toad compared with a what? He made me feel like a toad, and he was dancing so beautifully. So then I thought, what to say? So I decided to listen to a lecture by Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and then I hoped, excuse me, then I hoped that I get some inspiration what to say at this moment. So I remembered why don't I do the world premiere of a song that I wrote and dedicated to Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I think it's a good idea. Just 5 minutes. Actually, there's many verses, but you get the idea. And I lost my diary with all the other verses. Because this lecture was talking about the soul changing body, Yamaraj, reincarnation, and that's an important point in our preaching, the basics, the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Are you changing your body, my friend? Madanga Kajas. Are you changing your body, my friend? Kapian. I was walking my dog by the side of the street. I was walking my dog by the side of the street. Along came a truck and turned him to meat. Along came a truck and turned him to meat. Something is missing. Something is missing. I realize something is missing. These are Prabhupada's words. Something is missing. I realize. Are you changing your body, my friend? From childhood to youth, from youth to old age, from old age to death, the change continues. Somewhere a new body is waiting for you. I was a surgeon doing operation. I was a surgeon doing operation. I was a surgeon doing operation. The heart stopped beating. There was no resuscitation. The heart stopped. Something is missing. Something is missing. I realize something is missing. Something is missing. I realize. Are you changing your body, my friend? From childhood to youth, from youth to old age, from old age to death, the change continues. Somewhere a new body is waiting from you. Where a new body is waiting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Jaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Jaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Tirtha Swami, Jaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Say Harinath Sankirtan Ki. Thank you very much. Haribol.
His Holiness Mahavishnu Swami Maharaj Ki Jai. We will catch up with you for more songs.
Invite me to Timbuktu.
All right, we shall do that. Now we shall invite His Holiness Sulakavi Chandra Swami Maharaj. Actually, Sulakavi Chandra Swami Maharaj is the GBC for West Africa. He was the co-GBC of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He is our caretaker, actually. Since Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj left, he has been taking care of us. So we are happy to have him here. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhule Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirviseshwari Paschacharist Panchakalpa Churvischa Kripa Sindhu Devicha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo. When I was in Africa, when we knew Bhakti Tirtha Swami wasn't going to be around very much longer, so I said I wanted to go and visit him, and miraculously, a devotee gave me a ticket. And this never happened before. I always had to pay everything. And when I checked in, the girl said, "Anything else you'd like?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like business class." And it was business class. So that was a break. And he said, no, that never happened to him even, so he was impressed. I don't think it's happened again either. So when I got there, Chandramali Swami was there at the same time. And I saw him, and he had this huge smile, like always. And I thought, well, he's all right, And then I looked at his body, and I saw one arm was just hanging there, and half a leg, and he was skinnier than me. So I knew something was off. But he started crying, and he was so grateful that we came. So I was there a couple of weeks, and the day I was leaving, I asked him if he had a message for the devotees in Africa. So I was going back there. So he thought for a minute, and he had a really bad night. He told me in the morning that he wanted to die. The pain was so intense. But then later he had this Rife machine or something, and he was feeling pretty good. And the first thing he said was, "Don't quarrel amongst yourselves." So I was trying to repeat this for everybody, but especially for the devotees in Africa. And then he said, "Take care of preserve what we have." I was thinking more as the devotees, because we had a lot of issues there, devotees wanting not to stay, but also the properties, because we had a lot of properties that had been donated. So preserve what you have, distribute books, and worship the deities properly. He said we had a lot of trouble because of offenses to the deities. So he was there, he was quite ill, he was still going once in a while to the temple. I was in Gita Nagari. And at that first time I told him, maybe you can recover, I think you can recover. He said, no, I don't want to. He said, I can do much more by leaving. So I didn't understand that at the time. The last few years, I don't know how many years, but I'm seeing it happen. And the disciples, all the senior, we have some of the more prominent senior disciples here that are more world famous, but many others also. They've really come together. They're very, doing all the things he wanted them to do, getting back on their feet, cooperating, preaching, different. Nobody can be completely like him, but Bhakti Tirtha Damodara has a personality, Srivas Prabhu has an intellect, different aspects we see manifested in amongst other older leaders and younger leaders in West Africa are becoming empowered to try to do all the things he wanted us to do. especially the sustainable farm communities, which Prabhupada stressed so much. So you've all, had time with him, you've all experienced. I had some unique experience. We were traveling after Prabhupada's disappearance. It was the first attempt at selling Srimad Bhagavatam sets. And we didn't have an Indian community at the time. And there was a team, he was on that team, and a few other devotees, and I got on after a little while. And they had a list of people that subscribed to this magazine, which has all kinds of, I don't know what you call it, types of literature and everything, mystical kind of stuff. So we would call up these people and ask them if they'd like to see an ancient set of mystical books. And most of them would agree. And he would tell people that he was an aura reader. And that you have a very beautiful spiritual aura. But there's some crack there and you made some offense in your previous life. But now here's your chance to make up for it. And of course the people would be very fascinated to hear that. You have this beautiful golden aura. So we sold a few, but then we moved to Houston, Texas, and that was like a really desert. Nobody could take there. But so one time we were driving, he always insisted on driving because he got up so early and he was sleepy. And if he knew if he was riding, he's going to fall asleep. So he would drive. I tried and tried, let me drive. No. So I was reading, and I was, at that time I could see very clearly, and I was turned, right towards him, and I was reading the Bhagavatam very loudly. And we were stopped at a traffic light. Then all of a sudden, and the lamppost fell right between us, smashed the roof of the car, because he fell asleep on the gas. And what could be done? This is I just accepted. I don't know if I just kept reading or what, but he appreciated that. I didn't criticize him for that. After that, he gave up driving, but he loved Prabhupada's books. While we were driving, he would ask so many questions. I one time he was asking about the 26 elements and, just different things from the books all the time. Quizzing and seriously studying. At that time he was eating only peanuts and bananas or something once a day. That was before he went to heaven. So anyway, I had the great fortune of spending time with him. One time we were distributing books in the airport in Chicago, and their library parties stopped through Chicago. And he, who was one of the top book distributors in the world, distributing full sets of Bhagavatam, like even in deserted campus, he would find somebody. He actually followed me around and was taking notes. I was wondering, what's he up to, But he was taking notes, and all I was saying is, far out, I'm going to give a donation, I'll give you change. Wasn't so much preaching, but he was very serious like that. Always a student, always learning. And in Africa, I was only there a few times with him, because at the time I got into it, he had trouble with the visas, but I did make one contribution of convincing him to come back to the GBC and attend the meetings, and then he started traveling all over Eastern Europe. So we were very, very fortunate to have him. I go every day to the Samadhi, and just a few weeks ago I was there, and I looked at the dates and I was shocked. It was 18 years ago or 19 years ago that he left. It very seemed like nothing, you know. But I always try to, you know, pray that he can help the devotees there. And he's done a great job. So now we can see with his Shivas Prabhu, the great professor, and a few other high responsibilities that Dr. Damodara is preaching so beautifully all over the place. He's also super Brahminical, you know, Pujari, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj has become very famous wherever he goes. He's empowered all of these devotees. And like I said, many, many others that are still, they don't get out from Africa very often. But they're doing very great work now to push on and encourage the youth to take over. So we're very, very fortunate. We're still inviting anybody to please visit. It's not the easiest place to visit with the visa and high cost of transportation and so many things, and other risks of disease and so on. But don't worry, now we have some decent facilities and decent cars and lots of preaching opportunity, lots of university preaching, lots of, you know, new people coming all the time, and second generation disciples doing amazing projects. So thank you very much for letting me speak, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to have an association every once in a while. I knew that he was doing very well because I visited him in Washington, D.C., and that was a really successful project in Africa also. I saw what so much was there. Otherwise, devotees didn't know what any kind of crazy talk somebody said they would believe it. But he was always first class, strict in every way. Hare Krishna. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj.
His Holiness Lakavichandra Swami Maharaj ki jai. So we still have a few more speakers, and though time is limited, we have His Grace Sujitendra Prabhu. Is it? Let's go. So Sujitendra Prabhu can make his offering now. And following that, we have Jai Gaurasundara Prabhu will follow. Jai Gaurasundara Das Vanachari will follow. And then I think we'll close for, yeah, he said that. So then we'll have His Grace Advaita Charya Prabhu, and then His Holiness Bhakti. You want to speak? Okay. Please.
Hare Krishna. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. First of all, I would like to offer my respectful obeisances unto all of my present Guru Vargas, my spiritual uncles, the dearmost godbrothers of my spiritual master, and I would like to offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas present here and unto the lotus feet of His Divine Grace Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, who actually represents one of the greatest pillars of our ISKCON society. He so wonderfully demonstrated the conclusions of Vaishnava Siddhanta the conclusions that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to establish on this planet Earth so wonderfully, the conclusions like Vairagya, renunciation, and engaging Yukta Vairagya, engaging everything in the service of Krishna. So, we don't know actually who these wonderful personalities are, but all we know that we are extremely fortunate to have been present on this planet when they were here and they were carrying out the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the leadership of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada would say that his boys and girls were sent by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and so we can simply understand because we know some of the disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. Especially, we know a little bit about our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Bhakti Tirtha Swami Prabhupada, who was one of the Grihastha disciples according to some of his godbrothers. He was just a Grihastha disciple. But we know what Srila Prabhupada has accomplished, and we know who was the dearmost disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So if Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has sent Srila Prabhupada's boys and girls, so we can just get a glimpse. We know the wonderful glories of Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami, his scholarship, his determination to preach, his style of preaching, and his emphasis on global Hare Krishna movement. These things we can simply just get a glimpse from his characters and from his preachings that yes, these people, these personalities, they are not ordinary personalities. Many times when we are on this part of India, we hear many times that the disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati were eternal associates of Srimati Radharani, and they are Radharani's Ganas. So we can simply understand if these people are sent by, if these personalities have been sent by our founder Chayaji had said that they were sent by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we can also conclude that they are especially empowered and they are very, very dear servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, servants of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and they have come to establish the truths that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to establish, the spiritual truths that Srila Bhakti Tirtha Thakur so much wanted to establish, and the principles that Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish, and we can simply rejoice that we have been so fortunate to have such wonderful family of wonderful devotees in our society, such as His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj and so many other stalwart great generals of this wonderful Hare Krishna movement. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Sugitendra Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So now we shall ask His Grace Jaya Gora Sundara Das Vanachari Prabhu to say a few words. And then we have Anvita Acharya Prabhu, and then we have Ishana Prabhu. Oh, come on, Acharya.
ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तितीर्थ स्वामिनिति नामिने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देव गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष संयोजि पश्चात्य देश Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving me chance to glorify the very exalted devotee, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and I had relation actually during the Kitanagari time. I lived in Baltimore, but every year there used to be a Rath Yatra. So, countryside Rath Yatra, I would go and visit there. Besides, some other times I would go there. And so I have relationship with the Bhakti, Gitanagari ever since inception of the Bhakti Gitanagari. So, when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj has a center near Washington DC, there I used to go there, and I used to also invite him. Okay, I will invite him to my place, and we would have some good time. But mainly, when there was a new temple built in Gitanagari, so in the old temple I used to go there, and one time there was a very ecstatic kirtan, and Maharaj and was with me, and another devotee with me on the other. We have hand on each other's side, and we were jumping around. The Maharaj was jumping so much, but at that time I was young, so I could jump also. But that was a unique experience. But when one time I went to Gitanagari during Rath Yatra, every other Rath Yatra I would be there, and I will be sitting on the car, and I will take care of Srila Prabhupada sitting, and I will fan him, and I fan Jagannath Bande Subhadra also at that time. So one time, Maharaj was sitting next to me because he had there was a cancer started on his foot. So I told Maharaj that you don't belong to here on the card, you belong to there. And we have been dancing like anything, and I miss that. He said, what can I do? I have this problem. Well, so anyway, after that, we had when I have to recall certainly. So anyway, before after the Rath Yatra was completed, he came down and then he distributed prasadam. So this is my relationship and have encounter with this Maharaj. So this is so I am so fortunate that I had a relationship with His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj ki jai.
Grace Jai Gurusundara Prabhu ki Jai. Now we shall invite His Grace Pancharana Prabhu to say a few words before Ishan and then Advaita Acharya.
Krishna, Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai. So, although I was in New York Temple when Maharaj first joined, didn't get much association because he went on book distribution practically from the beginning. I was back at the temple. The way our temple was organized in those days was that everyone for Sankirtan had the leadership of Ramapada at the time. He organized so well, and I organized other activities. So hands off of the book distributors. they couldn't be engaged in the temple commanding services. Other things I was doing. But anyway, so I didn't get much association then. But when I moved here to Mayapur, I was able to observe at least his enthusiasm for kirtan, and that was so sweet to participate in. But some things that struck me in the later days, particularly during Srila Prabhupada's centennial in 1996, we had at that time tried to envision a program of celebration for Srila Prabhupada's 100th birth anniversary that would encompass the full range of ISKCON's activities. And he was one of those devotees who drew very strong attention to the need to address issues within the society. Our society has been organized from its inception, especially around outreach, book distribution, and various forms of preaching. But as the society was growing, and particularly by 1996, so many devotee householders, he was one of those leading devotees who recognized the need to address the social and economic needs of the devotees. And so he was instrumental in a number of initiatives, culminating, the last of those was a conference that he organized in Gita Nagari, and that's what I particularly remember. I went there, I participated, and I saw firsthand how he was applying the principles of care. Now, today we hear so much about, we have courses, we have a committee for caring for the devotees. But he was not only a pioneer in preaching, he was a pioneer in caring. Really, truly, from his heart, caring for the devotees. And we see this in those who have followed him, who have absorbed his mood, and we really appreciate that. He understood that the culture, the Vedic culture, which at the time we were talking about varnashrama, and I remember one time he gave a series of talks here in Mayapur on the topic, and one statement he made that has stuck with me ever since is that the practice of varnashrama, he described it like a sharp knife. It can be, when applied nicely, you can carve out a wonderful sculpture. But applied improperly, you can kill yourself. So we have to be very careful when we use the system of varnashrama, that we make sure that it is centered around the principle of care for the devotees. So I won't speak more. I miss his ecstatic kirtan. I miss his association on parikrama. I miss his vision. And I pray to absorb his mood. I think it's very significant that his two series of books draw a sort of two sides. One, it's called the Beggar series, called The Beggar, right? It's just The Beggar, right? And the other one, The Warrior, the spiritual warrior. So on the one side, you're a spiritual warrior for Srila Prabhupada's movement. And on the other side, simply a beggar, begging for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and all the Vaishnavas. So thank you very much for being here with us today, and I hope that that spirit and that mood will continue for all of us. And particularly I pray for myself. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Jai His Grace Pancharana Prabhu Ki Jai. Now we would like to ask His Grace Ishan Prabhu to say a few words before Advaitacharya Prabhu will draw a conclusion.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Before you start. Nam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Sai Madhulashmati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Janam Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shikatma Shigara Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Swami Janam. So I first met Gurudev back in 1987 in Australia, in a place called Murwillumbah, Australia. And I'd picked up a hitchhiker who was a Hare Krishna. And there was a festival going on called Balaram's Appearance, and I didn't know who any of that was. But I took this Hare Krishna to the farm, and then there was a black man giving a talk. And I had my feet out. I wasn't a devotee, and I had my feet out, and I was close to him, and he never said anything. And someone in the temple told me to put my feet in. It wasn't respectful. So that was the first time I'd met Gurudev, and then the next time I joined a farm. After that, I joined Hare Krishna farm. And that was New Gokul. And I was dressing Srila Prabhupada, and Bhakti Tirtha Swami came. And the first time it was Bhakti Tirtha Swami was giving the seminar, this talk. And then he came, and I was dressing Prabhupada, and he said, "Would you mind if I help you to dress Prabhupada?" And I seen his sannyasi cloth, and I was very shocked. And he was super kind to me then. And so we dressed together. He said, "Let's dress Prabhupada together." And then a few years after that, I went back to the first farm, and I got the position of looking after the Guru's ashram. It was a house that all the Gurus stayed. And it just happened to be Bhakti Tirtha Swami who was there the first day again. So 3 days on my first day at each farm, Bhakti Tirtha Swami came there. And he came to my room and he said, "Would you mind getting this frog out of the drain pipe? In Australia, they have cane toads." And it was making a lot of noise. Yeah, I think there is no microphone. Yeah, but I hope you can hear. Anyway, there was a cane toad inside the drain pipe, and Maharaj was trying to write. And together we were trying to get this cane toad out of the drain pipe. It was very big, it was huge. And every time he showed absolute compassion and kindness to me all the time. And then I wrote to him a letter of my experiences in life, and he wrote me back straight away, and he says, "I'm trying to collect devotees like you." He said, "I have a lot of people who have, psychic experiences and mystic things happening to them." And he invited me to Gitanagari. And this was when the seminars were going on. Do you remember that time? In the year 2000. So I had a short darshan with Maharaj on the afternoon. And he said to me, "Would you mind giving class tomorrow morning?" And I was a Bhakta at the time. And this was a big seminar. And this is just to show his kindness. Chandramali Swami was there, and Radhanath Swami, and Lokanath Swami, lots of Prabhupada Advaita there. And so anyway, I gave a talk about, he said, speak on the Bhagavatam class briefly and then talk on this particular subject matter. So I talked on the subject matter, and that class went on for a long time. And then in the end, Bhakti Tirtha Swami stood up and said, okay, Isham will give class again tomorrow. So this was Bhakti Tirtha Swami's festival with all his disciples there. And his kindness was just, it was overwhelming, you know, it was unbelievable how kind he was. He would walk around Gitanagari. I remember walking around Gitanagari with him and spending like 45 minutes with him just walking around. And I was wondering, how is it possible? Oh, Maharaj, another kind soul. Okay, I'll speak like this. So I was walking around Gitanagari with him for like 35 minutes. And I was wondering, how is it possible that someone can give someone as insignificant as me so much time, you know? And we developed a very good relationship together. Very nice. Every time, and many devotees have this, every time I would write him a letter, the next day he would reply, sometimes 1 hour later or 2 hours later. And his ability to do that was phenomenal. So there was one time we were going to Detroit, or maybe DC. No, it was DC. It wasn't Detroit, it was DC. And we were in the car together, and we were late for the Kirtan Lord Jagannath's procession had set off. And we were all running, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, myself, and a few other devotees. And we were all running to catch Lord Jagannath. And then I thought to myself, I was young, I thought, why not just sprint ahead and catch the Rathkal and say, wait for Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he's coming, he's running as fast as he can. So I sprinted as fast as I could, and I caught the kirtan and stopped them. And then Bhakti Tirtha Swami gave me his drum. So the whole procession, I would be standing looking at Bhakti Tirtha Swami and Lord Jagannath behind him and holding the drum and just dancing the whole procession. He gave so much mercy. There was one time when it was when the internet first started, and I had this Gauranga calling. Do you remember? Chandramali Swami used to write for this sometimes. So then Bhakti Tirtha Swami wrote to me, and he wanted to put something on the column of this Gauranga's calling. And he wanted to put something from his Spiritual Warrior 2 book. So I put that up, and then I got some emails from Bhakti Vikesh Swami saying there was some trouble with that, and I should take it back and write some apologies. And I wrote to Bhakti Swami, I said, what's this letter all about? And then he said, I'll deal with it. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami and Bhakti Vikesh Swami started writing letters to each other, and they put me as CC. So I was privy to their conversation. And they wrote a lot of letters, and they were arguing together. Bhakti Vikesh Swami wanted to, he was saying something that the Spiritual Warrior shouldn't have been written, because part 2, because Bhakti Tirtha Swami was a guru at the time of ISKCON. Anyway, I was kind of the adjudicator to the argument between the two. And I have all the letters, anyone can see them, they're on email. And it's a wonderful discourse, because I don't want to say anything bad about, one person against the other, but both had their points, and both were very valid. But the way that Gurudev Bhakti Tirtha Swami, the way that he handled it, it was just so much niceness in there, and it showed the opposite. It made the other one seem very aggressive, and
in my eyes, as an adjudicator, just seeing the two conversations, Bhakti Tirtha Swami won hands down because of his politeness, just because his gentlemanly replies. And it didn't matter if philosophically, if one point was correct or another. All that I got from the whole thing was the kindness that was coming through in every one of his letters. Yeah. So there are many times with Gurudev. I remember when you were mentioning about the Gita Nagari being in trouble. So I'd arranged with my wife to, with Bhakti Tirtha Swami, to buy a section of Gita Nagari. We were going to pay $80,000 at the time. So I wanted to set up a Harinam school. Do you remember in the old days? And so Bhakti Tirtha Swami, I went over there to Gita Nagari, and some temple president from Denmark had written things to him about me, saying when I get there, don't accept me, so to speak. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami had known me for many years, So he read this letter and he laughed, and he called me in. And then he wrote a letter back while I was sitting there. And he wrote a letter to them and made them apologize, the temple president and the other devotee. And then he said, you set up this Harinam school, you set it up as part of my IFAS group. And he wrote a letter, and he made sure I was underneath his auspice of the IFAS group. So his kindness towards me, it was the same to all of his disciples. He took me under his wing from the very beginning. And I remember when, just the last thing, when he was leaving his body, so at that time I was living in Mayapur. We've been here for 23 years, so it was early on. And I was serving Maharaj in one of the rooms up there. And he said to me, Ishan, I'm having pain every time I wee, every time I go to the toilet. This was before he declared before he understood he had cancer. And I didn't know how to take it because he was confiding in me very closely. And I didn't know what to do about it at all. I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't know anything. And I brought him a nice picture of Prabhupada, a pencil drawing. And he was very happy at that time. And then as his disease progressed, I would write to him and ask, should I come over now and see you? Is things okay? And he'd just write back, come when you think it's the right time. And I went to a tantric guy here in Mayapur, and he gave me lots of medicines to send to Gurudev, and he told me that he'd had some black magic done on him at the time. And I wrote that to Gurudev, and he wrote back saying, yes, I know I've had this before, and I've seen that certain tantric person myself. And so anyway, he said, send the medicine, and if they help, that's good. So I sent the medicine. And then as the time went on and we were all watching the emails, there was email updates all the time, we were watching this. And then one day I thought, it's too late, I better go. So when I booked a flight to go to America, I think it was the week before I arrived there, he'd said that was it. He wasn't seeing any other people. He'd taken Niranjan Bhajan. And I had a huge painting that I brought with me. It was like 8 foot by 4 foot of Radha and Krishna. And I thought, what present can you bring a dying man? Because I was coming from the Holy Land. So I thought, if I bring a huge picture of Radha and Krishna, then he can look at that as he's in the room. So I brought that picture over, and I wasn't allowed to see him anymore because he wasn't seeing anyone. I remember Bhakti Swarup Damodara Maharaj came and he got turned away. And so Rajalila and probably Adwaita Prabhu, they allowed me to go in the bhajan, in the living room. And somehow Bhakti Tirtha Swami had found out that I was there. He said, "Who's this new voice? And they said, "It's Ishan." So he said, "Tell him I want to see him tomorrow. He can come in." So he actually broke his own promise so that I could go in and see him. And I think I was the last person that was allowed to go in and have a darshan. So in that darshan, he spoke a lot to me. He was telling me that his arms are broken. He was actually telling me that he was afraid to die and he didn't want to die at the time. And then he spoke a lot of private things, which I don't really want to say too much. And he was going very quiet, and I couldn't hear, and I didn't want to be so intrusive on him, you know. And so I missed a good portion, but I was reading that it was Brihad Bhagavatamrita. I was reading that book to him. I think I stayed there maybe 45 minutes with him. Oh, that was a wonderful time. Very sad times, but anyway, there are many, many wonderful things to say about Bhakti Tirtha Swami, but the most wonderful thing is, I don't know if we'll ever get a person like that again in our lives. There are many wonderful Vaishnavas, and some stand out more than others. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami is compassion for everyone stands out more than anything. And I just like that everybody chant a Maha Mantra together wherever he is and wish him well. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami ki.
His Grace Ishan Prabhu ki jai. So now we're going to have the last offering by His Grace Adwaita Acharya Prabhu, one of the stalwart disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. And after that, we're going to have the Guru Puja offering in Kirtan and then Prashad. So the Prashadam is going to take place at Prabhupada Samadhi, and there is not enough space for everybody, so we're going to go in batches. And the first batch will be Srila Prabhupada disciples and sannyasis. They're the first batch. We need 60 people, followed by a second batch of 50. The 120 can go at once, but first we give preference to the Srila Prabhupada disciples and sannyasis. They are going to sit on the tables. We have 40 tables, they have 12 tables that can take 48 people. And then the others set of people will sit on the floor. There are mats for them to sit on. So we will go in batches 120 at a time. And then you must have your coupon. You pass through the main gate. People are going to check this. Make sure you have a coupon. Then you'll be allowed in. So if you are among the first 60 Prabhupada disciples, sannyasis, second 50, any other devotees, the rest have to wait. And then when the first batch is gone, then the second batch. So please take note. Hare Krishna.
We'll have a part 2 for those who didn't share at the Samadhi afternoon. Or no?
Okay.
Yeah. What time? That's good. Yeah, and one more thing about housekeeping or about a program is that for all of those who didn't share and would like to share, there will be a part 2 extension of sharing at 5:30 at the Samadhi. So please come. If you like to share, or if you like to hear, there will be opportunity for all of you. Huh? At the Samadhi site. ISKCON Samadhi site. Yeah, that area. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chanchurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah So is Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki. Who liked the storm last night? How many of you liked the storm last night? Only few. Yeah. Yeah. Some liked it, some didn't like it. I personally walked through it, and it was wonderful because it wasn't that far from where I was living. But yeah, I can imagine how the storms can be very, very difficult. We don't welcome them in our life. But there is actually two things that happen during the storm. They disrupt the status quo. That's one thing. But they also clear the path. Not all the storms are there to obstruct the path, but they also a lot of times they also clear the path. Lessons that we have to learn and also opportunities that are set in place. So I was reflecting how appropriate just the day before. And I was remembering also when I received that first email from Guru Maharaj in, was it 98? I felt like I got hit by the storm. I got hit by the storm because I knew this will change everything in my life. So we remember the effects of spiritual master being glorified as the cloud who brings the mercy and relief from the burning sensation of the heat. The worst kind is the burning sensation within our heart. Never satiated, always burning and not giving any peace. So I felt like that this morning. Everything was cleared up. Everything was cool. We were suffering from some kind of heat the last couple of days, actually last week or so. Everything was cool, and it was so nice to enter into the preview of this wonderful festival of Vyasa Puja celebration, remembering the effects of spiritual master that he brings to our life. One time, actually, Krishna was speaking to the cloud. He was saying, "Hey, Shyam Gana, you and I, we are the same. I'm Ganesham, and you're Shyam Gana. But you are much better. You give so much relief to all the prajas. I just sit here and enjoy my offerings. I'm a taker, you're a giver." I'm very grateful to His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who encouraged me personally, and I know many, many in the world, to face the difficulties and to walk through the storm of anartha nivritti. This is something that it's essential in our progress in spiritual life. That we won't run away, but we face the difficulties, and in spite of all the odds. And there's two ways to do that. You probably heard. One is the way of the bison, and the other one is the way of the cow. The cows actually run away from the storm, and that they caught up in the storm. The bison, actually, they're programmed, I don't know how, but they're programmed to go against the storm. So their time of the storm is much shorter. They pull through. If you're running away, you'll get caught up and you'll stay in it an extended, no longer period of time. So we're all encouraged through Spiritual Warrior series, through Beggar series, through all his life that he is showing by example, to face the difficulties and to take them in a way that they are nothing other than opportunities for the growth. And I'm grateful for that. And I beg for the mercy on this auspicious day from Guru Maharaj and all of you, that we might encourage each other while we are marching through the storm and the dark night of the soul that anartha nivritti is. The only way to survive is through mutual support and encouragement. One short story. I'm gonna need that other mic. As we're preparing for the festival, one of the festivals in Gitanagara, you can shoot this way. In Gitanagara, I was just the last minute thing. I was preparing for some signs for Ratha Yatra, and he was coming, like it was 10:30, and he was coming. It was another storm. Actually, it was another storm. I didn't realize that until now. It was another storm night before. Day before, I put all the signs up, but the storm came and knocked it down. So I was putting in last minute thing, and it was 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the car was coming, and I knew it was Guru Maharaj's car. So I was like, oh no. And I was putting the sign up, and the window was rolling down. So he was saying, oh, Advaita, always a last minute thing. And I was like, I know the window was very, very short because the car wasn't stopping. It was just like moving. And so I was like, should I explain what happened? There was no time to explain. So I just like, in a foolishness of my mind to say something, I should have better shot, but I said something like, hopefully Jagannath will be happy. Lord Jagannath will be happy. And the minute I actually put that out of my mouth, I realized, oh no, what a fool I am. And he snapped it right back at me and said, don't worry, I'll let you know. So I pay obeisances, realizing I don't have to worry about if Krishna is happy or not with me. He will tell me. So I want to remind myself on this very important day that there's no confusion, ambiguity. Our spiritual masters and our God family, which is the world of ISKCON, they will let us know where we are at. Because in order to make a journey from point A to point B, you got to know where you're at. This is Sambandha. Without that, the journey is just a fantasy, a dreamland. We all know we want to go back to Godhead, but in order to make that journey, we want to know, we have to know where we are at. So I want to thank you very much.
His Grace Advaita Chana Prabhu K. Jai. So we have come to the end of the offerings. I know there are still some devotees who would like to speak, but as we said, there is an evening program, 5 o'clock, Maharaj? 5:30. 5:30, there will be another program at the Samadhi area. And if you want to hear more from disciples, you can come to Puspanjalim. There's an online program going on from yesterday, and it's going to continue this afternoon. So if you're interested, after Prashadam, you can come to the Samadhi area, and you can hear more offerings, and then participate in the Puspanjalim ceremony. Then again, we want to remind devotees about the Prashadam. It's important. So the first batch will be Srila Prabhupada disciples as sannyasins. We should allow them first to go. Then right after that we have another batch, which is, so we have first 50, then 60. Then we have to give some time, then again another 650 and 60. So just exercise patience. There is enough prashadam for everybody. And of course, you should hold your coupon, because they'll be at the gate to make sure that anybody entering has a coupon. So you show your coupon and you'll be allowed in. And there is enough prashadam for everybody. Just exercise patience and you'll get some prashadam. So now we're going to have Guru Puja. Do you have flowers? Okay. No, that's a short one. All right. You will do the short version. This is yours. Bhakti Tirtha Swami
Krishna Padaya, Krishna Sri Gaura, Saraswati, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Namaste, Krishna Padaya, Madhupada, Ashtakare, Sri Gaura, Saraswati, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Namo Krishna Padaya, Krishna Pitaya, Gurudare, Srimate, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Nityanande, Namaste, Krishna Padaya, Madhupada, Ashitapane, Sri Gaura, Arunasakti, Bodhititi, Vinaya,
Yes, Prabhu, yes.
Andamoi Savadana Mate Andamoi Savadana Mate Jaharabasa Devai Bhavati Krishna Pati Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Guru Krishna Krishna Tirtha Swami Jaya Krishna
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare
Bhakti